Hello guys, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was locked in a dream world and his wife 3 begged him not to wake up? If you enjoyed this video then please like, share and do comments and also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation.
Naruto-kun. A voice chirruped happily when two figures entered the store. They were the first in the line, therefore they managed to get a seat at the counter along with several other people that went to their preferred tables. MIT-chan. Donut my guy. Welcome. A tick mark appeared on the man called Donut by Naruto while the small girl in black maid outfit and hair tied in a twin tail giggled at them. It had been a ritual for the two of them for over a year since the first they visited this store. It's Danasik, damn it. The man with the long gray coat and black hat answered gruffly before taking his seat. It's too long and hard to say. Ya know that. Naruto retorted. Vegetable ramen for you MIT-chan? Middle nodded with a smile, happy that the man she adored remembered her favorite. 3 miso for you donut? Grr. You're lucky your ramen is delicious or else, and yes. Hurry him up, Foxy. I missed my fast only for this moment. Hi. 1 vegetable and 3 miso coming right up. Naruto chuckled. Don't mind him Naruto-kun, just take your time. Middle giggled. How's your first day at school by the way? It's normal. A mischievous glint then shone in his eyes. Until I met this girl that has cat ears and 2 tails. Middle and Danasik perked up at the information. Their demeanor changed but not by a lot for Naruto to notice if he was a normal human. Oh? Are you sure that she's not cosplaying? Girls your age like cosplay, you know? Danasik answered as he drank his cold green tea. Not sure. They poofed out from nothing when I fed him my wiener. The whole restaurant went silent and turned to Naruto. It was so silent that a water drop from the sink could be heard. Naruto-kun. Middle slyly smirked at the blonde chef. You pervert till the first day and you fed a girl your wiener already? The twin-tailed girl teased. Wait. Wiener as in sausage that's cut into a small octopus. Not that kind of wiener, you perverted customers. The whole store laughed at his reaction before Naruto resumed making their order with an audible whine. Middle and Danasik didn't have much reaction since they knew that yukai and such things existed in this world. The only problem right now was their chef now met a nekosho and he wasn't supposed to know about it. They didn't want their favorite guy in a different meaning for both Middle and Danasik to be involved with the supernatural. Especially devils since they might turn him into one. Anyway, I don't know what happened but she ran away after her cat ears and tails disappeared. Right after that, a junior of mine was asked by this girl called Rias Gremory to bring me to her occult research club. Both the fallen angels recoiled at the name of House Gremory since Kuo was in their jurisdiction alongside the House of Citri. They had found out about it since their leader told them about it before they were tasked to watch over the blonde. He had even given them a harsh warning to not do anything in this town and any orders by proxy or not directly came from him were not his own. And since I watched too many movies about these kinds of things that are too coincidental for me finding a cat-shaped shifting girl and then someone asking me to come into their club room, I ran away immediately. Middle blinked at the sun-kissed haired chef as he put her bowl in front of the girl and her friend. You ran away? From Rias Gremory? That hot bombshell? This boy keeps surprising me more and more. Donut said in astonishment as he picked up a pair of chopsticks. You two know her? He got a nod from them. She is one of the most beautiful girls in Kuo. Who wouldn't know her? Naruto shrugged before going back to his stove. Meh, she's in my top 50. Anyway, the reason I ran away is because they'll probably kill and sacrifice me to summon a devil to do their bidding. I still want to live and make ramen, thank you very much. The first one who laughed after the two of them heard Naruto's reasoning was Danasik. He almost fell out of his seat from the boisterous laughter he made. That was a good one. Yes, I agree. You kept your life and you managed to get home safely and continue making ramen. Oh god, I haven't laughed this loud since forever. Gahahaha. Middle too couldn't help but giggled at the chef. That Gremory heiress must be pissed off from being brushed aside like that. Take that you bimbo bitch. Oh, this is going into the fallen net for sure. Gremory heiress got shot down before she could even meet the person she wanted to talk to. The two fallen angels exchanged telepathically before enjoying their ramen. By the way, I haven't seen Ray-chan and Kala-chan. They busy or what? Naruto asked as he put some bowls on top of a tray for his transformed clone to serve the other customers. HMHM. Rainier has something to do and Kala is waiting for her to get home. Maybe they'll come a bit late. Naruto nodded at the small blonde girl. He really enjoyed this kind of talk with his fallen friends, although they didn't know that he knew what they were. And he hoped that it wouldn't change when everything was revealed, or maybe he should tell them one of these days soon. I'm sorry, bucko. A boy's voice rang in a dim-lighted room. The owner was bowing at his king with an apologetic look. On his side, the white-haired petite girl, Koneko Taju, was also bowing to her king, although she had no expression on her face. It's all right, you too, the crimson-haired girl said while stifling her giggle with the back of her hand. Although she was a bit miffed by the new student, she couldn't help but giggled at his childish thought, which was a good point since he didn't easily follow someone. I can understand why Naruto-kun would think like that. I myself would do the same if I was a normal human and had watched a lot of movies about this kind of thing. What a naughty Foxy-kun. It would seem we need to do it with a different kind of approach, bucko. Akeno said with her palm on her cheek. Yes, Sona also told me that she was impressed with his observation skills and intelligence. She's probably taking an interest in Naruto-kun now. Should we let Sona-sama add him into her peerage then? Rias pondered about it for a while, and before she could answer her queen, Koneko raised her hand with her stoic look as ever. Bucko. Yes, Koneko-chan? Rias turned to her rook. Naruto-senpai smells like a dragon. The peerage along with their king turned to the white-haired girl with eyes widened in surprise. Are you sure about that, Koneko-chan? The Nekosho nodded. Yes, it was faint, but it was definitely a dragon, but he also smells like a kitsune. Kitsune? Does that mean Foxy-kun is a yokai, bucko? Rias shook her head. No, he definitely gave me the impression of a human, nothing more than that. Except for his whiskers though. I know, right, those whiskers are really adorable, especially when he made that expression of his. Made me want to pounce on him and eat him on the spot. Akeno said with a bated breath. Her cheeks were slowly turning red and she licked her lips. Akeno. Rias sighed exasperatedly at her queen before he turned to Kiba and Koneko. For now, I'm sure that Naruto-kun will try to avoid the four of us, and somehow, we have to make him believe that we mean him no harm. Koneko raised her hand again. I'll do it. Koneko-chan, didn't he see your ears and tail already? Are you sure you're able to persuade him? Koneko nodded. I'll do my best. Besides, he feels warm. I don't know why, but he gave out some kind of warmth and safety that I used to feel with her. Rias and the others blinked at the petite girl. It was rare for the Nekosho to speak more than 3 to 5 words. Very well. I wish you the best of luck, Koneko-chan. Rias nodded at her rook. Please inform me about your approach every day if it's possible. Yes, bucko. And bucko, Akeno began, moving on the next topic she found interesting. Did you know that today the trio was found stealing girls' underwear? No, I didn't. Did they really do it? That's what Sona-sama is investigating. Akeno gave the report to Rias while Koneko began eating her snack and Kiba drinking his tea on the couch. Based on their testimony, they didn't do it and they don't remember when the plastic bags containing the underwear are with them. Akeno paused before continuing. According to some of the other students who saw the trio today, they witnessed them escorting a blonde girl with hair tied in a tail. But when they described the girl to Sona-sama, there's no record about the student in the database. There is no way this is a work of devils or fallen angels since this is way below their standard. Is there a possibility that a yokai might have snuck into our school? Kiba asked. It might be, but we'll leave the matter to Sona. Rias said with finality. It is her job as the student council president after all. The peerage nodded before resuming their own thing to do. The next day, Naruto was enjoying his lunch on the rooftop again. He had told his friends that he couldn't eat with them since he had something to do, much to the girls' disappointment. Rias and Akeno too tried to talk to him, but Naruto was pretending to be wary of the two great ladies. He still answered them in a friendly way, but even those two ladies knew that he was different from the first time they met. They noticed he tried to avoid their eyes and tried to end their conversation very quickly. The boys were enraged since he treated both Akeno and Rias that way, but a glare from the two girls was enough to silence them. The blonde then noticed the same pair of hazel eyes staring at him from behind the door to the rooftop. He turned around and their eyes met. Hi? The The petite girl didn't answer vocally but she nodded nevertheless. You're not coming here to kill and eat me, right? Koneko deadpanned at her senpai. I mean, I knew your secrets, and perhaps you'll want to silence me by killing me. The glare intensified before Koneko huffed slightly. Koneko then walked toward Naruto, who was pretending to be scared. The latter knew that she didn't have any bad intention toward him, but this was the plan for his biggest prank ever. Without hesitation, Koneko plopped onto his lap before snuggling her head to his chest like a cat. She mewed at him. She didn't know why. The closer she got to Naruto, her instinct as a nekosho flared up and she just wanted to rub her body onto his. Oh, since you're some kind of a cat, perhaps you want me to rub your head? Koneko nodded slowly in his chest before Naruto put his chopsticks down and began to rub the girl's head. Nya tilde, Koneko purred. Holy fuck, she's so cute. Naruto screamed inwardly, surprising the Biju, who was still asleep since yesterday. I left you for a while and you already have a girl sitting on your lap, and isn't she younger than you by a lot? Luminous asked with a hint of irritation in her voice before yawning. You're finally awake. I've been calling you since yesterday. Wait, yesterday? I slept for a whole day. Yes you did, you lazy fox. What about my TV show? You can always re-watch them on the internet. Ah, Luminous sighed. She had been waiting for that Gumiho show since last week and now she missed it because she overslept. Hey, I didn't watch it either since I wanted to watch it with you. So we'll watch it together later, okay? You're the best, Naru-kun. Naruto chuckled at his tenant as he rubbed the white-haired girl's head. He noticed that she let out her ears and tails again before he pointed them out. The girl didn't care and kept asking him for a head pat. I still have my lunch to finish, miss. Koneko to Zhu, and feed me too. You know, I don't mind her if she keeps acting like this. Besides, I've always wanted to have kids with you. Luminous giggled in his mind, making the blonde blush. Nice to meet you then, Koneko-chan. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. The girl nodded before Naruto fed her some of his lunch. If I'm allowed to ask, are you a Nekomata? Wrong. Nekosho. Naruto waited for her explanation but the girl didn't say anything anymore. I see. Naruto sighed inwardly. Then, forgive me for asking, but are Kiba, Rias, and Akeno-san yukai too? Koneko didn't answer immediately, but after a few seconds of pondering about it, she shook her head. No, they are. Different from me, but in one sense, I'm also part of them. Then, they're not humans or yukai. Koneko shook her head slowly. She had stopped snuggling ever since the Q&A began but still rested her head on his chest. We are what you humans called devils. Naruto dropped his chopsticks in shock. But we don't do evil things like eating people's souls or anything like the book said. Naruto gulped, showing his nervousness. I see. So, you guys aren't going to kill me, right? Koneko shook her head. No, but Rias Bucko wanted to talk to you about something. Koneko finished, adding more thoughts to Naruto's head. She's definitely gonna ask me to join her. Should we join her peerage, Lumi-chan? I doubt that brat can turn you into a devil. And even if she could, I'd rather you not serve under anyone else. You are my king, not someone else's peerage, members, or whatever it is. You're right. Besides, I love being human. Except that I'm now a transcended one, thanks, Lumi-chan. The Biju didn't say anything but Naruto could feel she was nodding her head with a soft huff. Not that I don't believe in you or Rias, but if she wants to talk, can we talk in a more open place? I'll tell Bucko about it. For now, more pats please Nya tilde. Naruto chuckled. As you wish, my lady. I can't believe that you got him to agree to talk with me, Koneko-chan. Rias said with her hands crossed under her busts, clearly impressed with her rook. And it was just yesterday that you volunteered to do it. Me neither, but Naru-kun is someone easy to talk to if you answer him honestly. Koneko gave her a peace sign. The two great ladies didn't miss how affectionate the rook addressed the blonde and somehow they felt something prick their chest. Was it jealousy because she got close to Naruto easily, or was it because Naruto managed to get their rook to be so open with him in just under a day? Arid tilde Naru-kun? Koneko-chan is a step ahead of us, Bucko. I guess so. And did Naruto-kun tell us where to meet? Whirling ramen. The two great ladies tilted their heads to the side. Ah, I've heard that one. Kiba answered to their confusion. That ramen store is one of the must-try if you go to Kuo town based on what the worldwide news and magazines say, and apparently, Naruto-senpai is the owner of that ramen store. Oh, I didn't expect that. Me neither. Well, yesterday when I tried to bring Naruto-senpai here, he shouted that if it wasn't for the policeman patrolling, he would have been in the kitchen making ramen. Kiba laughed sheepishly at his failure. And after what Koneko-san said just now, I'm 100% certain that Naruto-senpai is the owner. Besides, Uzumaki means whirlpool and Naruto comes from Narutomaki, which is a common topping for ramen, and his store's name is Whirling Ramen. The girls clapped at Kiba's conclusion. So, are the four of you free for tonight? Rias asked her peerage since she knew that some of them might have contracts to do. They nodded. They had no plans for the night and they could make some time if their clients called for them. It is decided then. Did Naruto-kun tell you where his store is, Koneko-chan? The white-haired girl nodded. It's near the park, and he said that, I quote, you'll find it easily with the big spiral sign. The three sweat dropped at the rook who was impersonating the blonde with a thumbs up. Naru-kun, good afternoon. Hey, Naruto-kun. Ah, welcome. I didn't see you two yesterday. Rei-chan, Kala-chan. Naruto looked up to the two beautiful ladies who took a seat at the counter alongside Middle and Donasek. Sorry Naruto-kun. I planned to come, but since Rei here had something to do, she came home late and we didn't manage to make it on time. Kala-warner replied as she glared at her black-haired friend, which the latter did the same. It's alright. The point is that I'm glad I can see you two today. I missed you too, you know? Naruto waved his hand nonchalantly at the blue-haired woman. No fat ramen for the two of you as usual? Both the fallen angels nodded at him, not trusting their voice right now since they were blushing hard when they heard him saying that he missed them. Why the hell are we acting like a high school girl that has a crush on him? Rainier asked Kala-warner. We're the ones who should make him blush like crazy. Not the other way around. Give it up, Rei. Naruto-kun does have his own charm. Honestly, I don't mind acting like a high school girl who has a crush on him. Kala-warner replied telepathically to her fellow fallen. We had never felt like this before, so why not enjoy it while we can? Rainier nodded in her thoughts. Her friend was right. This was a moment that she had been waiting for all her life, to have someone to fall for, and they found the one. MIT-chan and Donut are the same as usual too, right? He got a giggle and an angry yell from the aforementioned two respectively. Well, he was right. It is easy to spot it if the signboard is that huge. Kiba said as he watched in amazement at how large the signboard was. The store itself wasn't too big, only a two-floor shop, but the spiral sign was what made it easy for them to find it. How is it in the name of Lucifer that I never saw a sign that big before? Rias asked in frustration. She almost went through this park every day, but she had never seen that signboard before. Looks like the store is closed. Akeno said as she watched a woman turning the open sign to close. Well, Naruto-kun might have expected us, therefore it wouldn't be a problem for us if we come and see. Ah, that was a good one, shouted a man with a happy tone while he was patting his stomach as he and his three friends came out of the store. You ate more than 14 bowls, Donut. Rainier. That was a food of gods. How can I not eat a lot of them? Besides, didn't you, Middle and Kala-warner, eat more than 3 bowls yourself? And stop calling me Donut, goddammit. The three aforementioned women blushed when he pointed them out. Naru-kun offered them to us for free, how could I refuse him? Rainier answered haughtily before swiping her hair to the back. Yup, besides, vegetable ramen is the best. And they are low-fat too. The no-fat ramen was better. Middle. It's a dream for me to be able to eat this kind of food without worrying about my weight. I have to thank Naruto-kun for inventing those no-fat ramen. The four sighed blissfully before they walked past Rias and her peerage, but they didn't say anything as they left the precincts. They're worried about their chef, but they couldn't do anything rash, therefore they left, trusting the matter to their friend. Rias, Akeno called out. Her voice was unusually serious and cold, her eyes narrowing at the four figures back. They are, yes, they are fallen angels. But why didn't they bother to hide their signature energy? And by the way they called Naruto-senpai, it seems that they are his customers, a close one perhaps. Kiba concluded. Koneko pouted. She didn't want anyone else to call her senpai that way. Anyway, let's get inside. Rias clapped her hands since Akano was one step away before attacking the fallen angels. She pushed Akano from behind and entered the store. "Welcome," a voice greeted the four devils. They were shell-shocked at the maid in front of them. "Graphia-sama," Akano asked. The maid tilted her head to the side. Her mismatching eyes were looking at them sharply. "My name is Luminous Valentine. Naruto-sama had informed us about you and your club members coming here," Luminous said without waiting for them to regain their bearing. "Please, have a seat at the counter. I will bring Naruto-sama from his kitchen," the maid said before leaving the four dumbfounded students. Following that, a waitress served them cold tea as they waited for the blonde owner. "That maid looks a lot like your sister-in-law, Bucko." "I know. If not for the color of her eyes and the way she stared at us, I may have mistaken her for Graphia." "Koneko-san, what's wrong?" Kiba asked the pale-faced girl whose body was shuddering. Both Rias and Akano then turned to see the youngest member of the former's peerage in worry. That maid," Koneko muttered. "That woman is scary. My instinct warned me not to cross that woman no matter what happened." "Well, that maid does give out the same feeling as Graphia." Koneko shook her head, and before she could correct her king, she perked up and saw Naruto coming out of the kitchen in a bright orange short-sleeved kimono. Hi there, Neko-chan here said that you guys want to talk with me?" Naruto greeted his guests before receiving a smack on the back of his head by his maid. "Ow, what's that for, Lumi-chan? That is not an appropriate greeting, Naruto-sama. You're too strict sometimes." The devil's sweat dropped at the two who acted awfully similar to their king's brother and queen. "Ahem, anyway, what is it that you want to talk about, Rias?" Naruto took a seat beside the group before Koneko jumped to his lap and snuggled to his chest, getting the ire of the Biju and glares from the two great ladies while Kiba sheepishly laughed at her. "Before that, Naruto-kun, can we have this talk only between the five of us?" Rias glanced at the silver-haired maid who was standing behind the blonde. Rias just couldn't believe how similar the two in front of him were to her brother and sister-in-law. It was as if they were the human version of the two. "Nay, Akano-san, you don't think that these two are Searzek-sama and Graphia-sama in disguise, right?" While that was a fun possibility, I don't think so, Kiba-kun. The queen and knight whispered to each other, not knowing that Naruto and Luminous could hear them clearly. "Sorry Rias, but Lumi-chan has always been by my side ever since the first hour I was born, so, you know the drill." Naruto laughed sheepishly as he rubbed the back of his head, gaining an approving nod from his maid. Rias sighed but eventually nodded at him. In the worst case, she could just rewrite their memories. "Very well. But before I get to the main topic, did you know those four that came out of your store are not human?" Naruto's eyes widened, his hand however was still patting Koneko. "Guess your reaction answered my question." Rias huffed lightly. "They are fallen angels, ones that had fallen from their grace because of their impure thoughts. But they can't be that bad, right? They've been my friends for a year and they haven't done anything to me." Inwardly, Luminous, who was listening to his host, was giggling at Naruto's performance. He pretended that he didn't know anything and the devils were buying it hard. She would give him 100 points alone for that. "Yes, I know. There had not been any issues ever since I ruled this town." "Wait, what do you mean by, you rule this town?" Rias waved her hand. "It's not important for now. But I want you to be careful around them and always carry this with you." Rias gave her summoning contract along with Kiba, Akano and Koneko's. "If you're in peril or in need of desperate help, you just need to wish as hard as you can to summon one of us." Naruto glanced at the contracts on the table before looking up at Rias. "I see. But I still need to see the proof that you guys are not humans and this mumbo-jumbo supernatural is real." Koneko pouted at Naruto. When she thought that she had convinced him, he still asked for others to show the proof that they were devils. Rias nodded and immediately, a pair of black wings flapped open from his back. "Well, shit." He turned to Luminous, who threw a glance at his master before turning back to Rias, whose wings were already gone. "Does that satisfy your curiosity, Naruto-kun?" The blonde nodded. "Then, I'll just move on to the main point of this talk." Rias took a deep breath before looking at him in the eyes. "I want you to join my peerage as a family member of mine." Before Naruto could open his lips, the peerage felt a pressuring glare from the maid standing behind him. Naruto widened his eyes since luminous anger toward the devils kept rising even though he had told her about this possibility. You dare to ask my master to serve you? Luminous let out of her killing intent, her eyes narrowing sharply at Rias and her peerage. The four devils were shaking in their seats. Kiba then fell into his hands and knees, his face turned pale and he looked like he wanted to kill himself to end this nightmare. Koneko was crying and curled up in Naruto's lap while covering her ears. Akeno was having trouble breathing similar to Rias who was sweating profusely. They dropped to the floor, tears were overflowing from their eyes. They felt as if a god of death was breathing behind them. The young devils were in luck as at that moment, the door to the store was opened by a beautiful woman with long red hair that reached out her waist. She wore a white open-shoulder long-sleeved blouse tucked inside her blue skirt and a blue tie around her waist. She also wore a thigh-high socks as well as penny loafers. I used Lilith Asami from Trinity 7. Naru tilde Lumi tilde I'm home tilde. At the same time, a magic circle came out inside the shop behind Rias and her peerage. From it, Searsex's Lucifer and his queen showed up in panic since the former could feel that his sister was a step away from death's door. Rias, are you alright? I felt that you're in danger. Lilith, Ni-sama. Naruto and Rias said at the same time. Rias was glad that her brother came here but this would also add more trouble to her asking Naruto joining her peerage. Luminous anger had subsided a bit allowing the younger redhead to realize the situation they were currently in. Huh? Naruto spotted the familiar maid whose widened eyes were locked onto him. Fia-chan. It's been a… Naruto covered his mouth immediately and turned his head away. Wait, Fia-chan? Searsex asked before noticing another name that the blonde said. Lilith? The Satan raised a brow to the familiar name before he turned to the door and his eyes found a woman that he thought was dead. Lilith-sama. The mentioned redhead tilted her head to the side. She knew that these guys were devils but she didn't recognize them although the magic signature the red-haired man gave out had the same feeling from the first Biel and Gremory. Naruto-sama? Is that really you? The queen of the current Lucifer called the blonde with a surprised look, her facade as maid forgotten as she stared at the blonde who was sweating profusely. Wait, you know Naruto-kun, Grafia-ne-san? Rias asked in surprise. She had wiped her tears but her feet were still weak. Oh fuck. Naruto groaned before turning his head to Luminous who sheepishly averted her eyes away from Naruto's glare. This is your fault. Lilith looked past Searsex without caring about the latter. Did I come home at the wrong time, Naru, Lumi? The situation was quite rowdy since everyone had been asking each other the questions they wanted to ask and none got the answers. Grafia especially was trying to get her answer from Naruto and Searsex was questioning Lilith who was ignoring him by covering her ears while Rias was trying to comprehend what the hell was happening and how her acquaintance from school knew them. A table hosted the two group. Lilith sat next to Naruto, clinging to his arm as if her whole existence relied on it, while Luminous stood behind the two, hiding her annoyance effectively despite having a stern expression on her face. Koneko sat on Naruto's lap, her arms and legs encircling the blonde's frame. The rest of Rias' peerage was seated next to Searsex, who was watching the mother of all devils behaving so like a hopeless schoolgirl in love with the blonde young man in front of him. Grafia stood behind the group with the same irritated expression as Luminous, which she successfully concealed under her facade. So, how do we do this? Naruto asked as his transformed clones prepared some cold tea for the group. First of all, Searsex took a deep breath. How in Satan's name, the wife of the original Lucifer is here? Isn't she supposed to be dead? Naruto squinted his eyes before tilting his head to the side at the current Lucifer. The girls were squealing inwardly at the blonde who made that cute gesture. Kids nowadays are rude. Lilith pouted, not even introducing themselves before asking questions. The red-haired man laughed nervously as Lilith shot him a death glare. Ah, right. Please forgive me. The name's Searsex Lucifer, the brother of Rias Gremory and one of the four new Satan. Naruto Uzumaki, the owner of Whirling Ramen, best ramen store in the world and the victim of the police officer who sent me back to school. Naruto said proudly with a smug look on his face. Everyone's sweat dropped at Naruto's introduction alongside the image of him patting Koneko in a serious discussion. Then, to answer your questions, I saved Lilith here from a guy named Rizavam and Hades, restored her decaying body to her prime and now she's living with me. The people in front of him were taken aback by Naruto's casual response. Sirzex, however, was unexpectedly serious alongside Grafia, their eyes narrowing at the blonde as the latter did the same. And, may I know what happened to those two? Rizavum Riven Lucifer was from the old Satan faction that opposed us in the past and were afraid that he might cause a problem in the future. Sirzex paused before sipping some of his tea and continued. And if what you said was true about Lady Lilith, then as one of the four Satan, we had to deal with him immediately. Sirzex tapped the table with his finger. This was a serious matter that needed to be handled quickly. However, all his anxiety was gone with one word from the mother of all devils. Dead. The devils group turned to their red-haired ancestor. Naru here killed him and erased Hades' memory since they were experimenting on my body to create more devils. I see. Now, Sirzex didn't know how to respond to that. One of the most powerful devils that he considered dangerous was easily killed by this young man, and Hades himself was no match for him since Naruto managed to erase his memories. I don't have any questions about you guys since I know the history of angels, devils and fallen angels. Well, except for your family line or why your last name is different from your sister, or if Grafia has a maid fetish like Lumi-chan here. He got a smack on the back of his head from Luminous when he said that. Grafia too narrowed her eyes at the blonde. Well, if you have any more questions, shoot. Naruto said with an inviting smile as he nursed his head, easing the tension on the discussion table. Grafia raised her hand. Yes, Fia-chan? Naruto turned his head to the maid. My word, you look just as stunning as the first time I saw you. Luminous and Lilith smacked the back of his head, while Koneko bit his chest. Stop flirting, Master, Naru-kun. The group sweat dropped at the three in front of them while Grafia blushed at the praise. Rias pouted because he was flirting with her sister-in-law and not with her. Moreover, the mother of all devils was her competition along with the pretty maid behind him. Wait, what competition? I don't have any crush on Naruto-kun, right? Sure, he sounds nice, and as Koneko said, he's easy to talk to when we're honest with him. But, it can't be, right? Thank you for your words, Naruto-sama. However, I have a question of my own, if you don't mind? Naruto nodded at the maid as he nursed his chest bitten by Koneko. What and who are you, Naruto-sama? Those were the questions that Sirzex and Rias wanted to know. The former had been curious about him since he saved Grafia, and the latter wanted to know because he knew her sister-in-law and had the power to kill Lucifer from the main family and bested Hades, the king of underworld from Greek mythology. Speaking of which, Grafia lied that she doesn't know him. Do I punish her for lying? No, I better not since I don't want any trouble. Sirzex thought to himself before he shook the thoughts off. That's an interesting question. But let's just say that I was a human a long time ago. Naruto chuckled. To be honest, I don't even know what I am anymore. Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. I'm immortal, yes, but a human, no, not anymore, I think. And, how long it has been, Naruto-sama? Naruto cupped his chin as he tried to pick the word. What was it called again? Millennia? No, eons? Ah, super eons ago. Naruto snapped his fingers. What? Rias stood up from her chair, surprised by what she heard. This man in front of her was basically ancient. No, if there was a word to describe what was older than ancient, then it would be it. I was human, but after a certain war back in my time. That was when I reached 17 years old at the end of it, by the way. After we defeated the primordial goddess who tried to turn us into her mindless minions to protect herself from her own kind who were trying to find her on Earth. I became more than just a human, retained my appearance and became an immortal. Sirzex and the devil stumbled back in shock. Again. This boy? No, the man in front of them was only 16 years old when he took part in a war and against a goddess nevertheless. Not even the four Maos were that young when they participated in the civil war. Naruto sipped a drink from his cup. What do you think I am, Lumi-chan? You've been with me since I was born after all. Then, the group's focus shifted to the stoic maid standing behind Naruto. You are someone beyond God since you have vanquished numerous gods who had ruled over numerous worlds and took their powers into your own, Naruto-sama. Even the recently deceased god, while barely, only managed to reach 10% of your own power. His creation of all things was inferior than yours, and you were able to will anything with Shinjutsu. He was just a cheap copy of yours that dared to boast himself as God. If we were to join the Great War back then, I would have killed them all. The maid made a scathing remark since she wouldn't accept someone that frail as a god. Everyone there were terrified at the potent killing intent the maid let out. Not only that, but she openly declared that would have killed all factions in the Great War if they joined it. You do know that we'll make an enemy of the church if they heard you, right? Naruto chuckled, trying to calm his tenant and lover down. And I told you to stop saying things like that since you sounded like Madara Teme back then. The maid crossed her arms under her bust as she harumphed. If they do come for us, I'll destroy every churches that worship the frail thing they called God. Lumi-chan. Naruto groaned at his maid. She could be really stubborn if she wanted to. Now the group just stared at the two in with their jaws hanging. The Great War happened probably over 1,000 years ago, which was quite a time, yet the maid said that it was recent. Not only that, but the god who was omnipotent was inferior than her master. Moreover, the maid seemed to hate someone that weak to call himself as a god. Lilith had been told about their story when she was recovering from her previous state, therefore she wasn't shocked anymore but still amazed at the story. And since she agreed that Naruto and Luminous were much stronger than her father by a massive margin, she wasn't irritated by Luminous' tirade against him. Searsex raised his hand, deciding to proceed with the Q&A. What is this shinjutsu you're talking about? Is it similar to senjutsu or yujutsu? Naruto noticed Koneko jolted a little from the mention of senjutsu, but he didn't say anything though his brows creased in worry. Naruto cupped his chin with one hand, thinking an appropriate answer for the Lucifer. It's kind of hard to explain, but it is basically omnipotence. Here, let me show you the example of it. Naruto raised an open palm to them before closing it, and a second later, he opened his palm and there was a king piece that they recognized from the magical energy alone. Searsex stood up all of the sudden, his eyes wide opened as if he saw something out of this world. This king piece is based on what you devils created, and I stole a set years ago. However, instead of turning someone into devil, it revives them still as a human and gives them the ability to use chakra, and their physical abilities will be almost at the same level as my people. For example, they can breathe in space without spacesuit, moving freely without being limited by the non-existence of gravity, spewing lava from their mouth. Hell, there was this one guy who stored a sword inside his stomach. Naruto laughed at the devil's reactions. Did you say you stole one set years ago? Yup. Naruto grinned. I think it made that green-haired Satan almost went mad since he lost one of the set. That was you. Tell him sorry for me, will you? All of the pieces are mutated ones, by the way. I'll try to give him the news, and by the way. Searsex pointed at the piece in Naruto's hand. See, can I? Sure, it only reacts to me and can't be replicated anyway. Naruto stuck his tongue out like a kid before he threw the king piece to Searsex, much to the Lucifer's excitement. One more thing, Naruto-kun, if Valentine-san said that gods, ouch. The inferior version of you, can you create life? Rias asked in excitement. Although she was a supernatural being, creating a life was one different thing altogether. I can. Naruto looked to Luminous. I think it is time for us to add another member to our family, isn't it? If you say so, Naru. Oh, and please make her a Kuadere type and a hot one. Naruto's sweat dropped at his maid along with the devils. Graphia, however, didn't agree how Luminous acted. A maid must be sophisticated and dignified, not someone who liked to play maids. Naruto then put aside Koneko onto an empty chair, earning a small whine from the white-haired girl. He stood up in an empty space before he clapped his hands and put them on the floor. A bright flash covered the entire room, causing the devils to close their eyes, including Lilith, who had never seen his ability to create life. Then, in front of them, they saw a naked white-haired girl in short bob with a bang covering her left eye. The girl also had a beauty mark below the left side of her lips. She was laying down on the floor breathless until a few seconds later, the girl began to take her first breath and opened her blue and gray eye. In the process of creating a new life, Naruto had also imparted the language all she needed to know in this world and how society acts in daily lives. Therefore there wouldn't be any problem. No way. Rias exclaimed excitedly, her eyes was sparkling like a kid's. The other devils were surprised at her reaction. True, they were also the same, but Rias had a lot more excitement behind her voice. The red-headed Gremory then pulled out her smartphone and began searching for something and eventually showed it to Akano, Kiba, and Koneko, who were sitting beside her. The queen, knight, and rook's eyes bulged in surprise after they saw what Rias shared with them before turning to Naruto. What makes the three of you look at me like that? Naruto asked incredulously while Luminous had covered the girl with a blanket and brought her to an empty room with Lilith. This. Look at this. And imagine the girl from before wearing this kind of clothing. Rias showed her phone screen to Naruto before a few seconds later Naruto himself was surprised at what he had created. Holy shit, I know right. Rias jumped in joy, then she grabbed his hands with puppy eyes staring at him. You just created 2B from Nier Automata. To be honest, that was a pure coincidence. I have never played that video game. I don't care. Rias shut him down. Can I come here every day and play dress up with her? Please? Please please please. She leaned forward, making her breasts enveloping Naruto's hands and pushing them toward his chest. Fine, you can come here and play dress up with her. Yes, thank you, Naruto-kun. She hugged him tightly as if squeezing his life out of his body before she let her go and returned to her seat beside her brother. Then, Naruto turned the TV and switched to a live channel. Was that enough show of what I can do, or should I show you another example of it? Another one might be good. Sirzex said nervously. Naruto nodded before the screen on the TV was showing the underworld, the plain and wasted barren land of the underworld. He closed his eyes before the barren land of the underworld turned into a grassy one filled with life. Is that enough? Or should I make the sun went supernova? They shook their heads in a speed that would make a normal person's head snap. The other devils beside Rias couldn't keep up with him anymore and they were gaping like a fish. The redhead Gremory already believed in Naruto since he literally made a video game character came to life, while Sirzex was horribly terrified with the anomaly. Naruto then glared at him as if he knew what he was thinking. Oi! Naruto called the current Lucifer, who jumped at the voice. I'm not an anomaly, you fucking shithead. You guys are the ones who are the anomaly. Naruto deadpanned at the redhead, who chuckled nervously. Creating different underworlds and heavens like they owned this dimension. Naruto mumbled before continuing. Ever since the gods were freed from their enslavement, they only turned this world worse than before. Rias raised her hand. What do you mean by enslavement, Naruto-kun? The blonde smiled at Rias, who then blushed at his smile. Glad that you're not afraid of my origin. Hades himself was pissing himself when I revealed a bit of my identity, since he was one of those that my ancestors sealed, although he went by different name back then. Hell, the gods had different names before except for the Shinto ones who keep using their names. Naruto coughed into his hand since he was going on a tangent again. Anyway, my ancestors enslaved gods and sealed them in masks a long time ago. When they wore them, they could utilize God's power in exchange for their lives. We can also summon them like the Shinigami, but it will cost our life and our souls will be trapped in his belly without knowing heaven or hell. Naruto took a deep breath before continuing. These gods vary from Greek, Shinto, Hindu, Norse and many others from what they called themselves nowadays. Unfortunately, time passed, my era ended. The temple where the masks were sealed into was destroyed, but the masks were still intact until the first modern civilization rose and fell and those masks were destroyed, releasing the deities. I didn't have any hand to do with the end of my era and the next ones to come since I self-exiled myself. What happened to that time, Naruto-senpai? Kiba, who had been quiet all this time, asked. He had calmed himself down after what Luminous did before Sirzex and Lilith interrupted them. Natural disasters. The planet felt humans were destroying the world, therefore, she decided to reset the world back to zero herself. There was almost no green scenery anymore in the past before the reset since the technologies were really advanced. There was no natural soil. They were all man-made, including the trees and grass. In fact, the time we're currently living in right now is slowly heading toward the same end. Naruto then looked at the group of devils in front of them. The thing that you know is flying cars, portals, space exploration, androids and many sci-fi things had already existed in that time, you know. Ria's eyes went bright, full of excitement as she listened to Naruto's story. Naruto-sama, Grafia raised her hand again. Why did you decide to exile yourself for a very long time? Easy. I did it to preserve power balance in my time. One man shouldn't be allowed to play God onto lives of the others, you know. If I keep sticking my nose to everything that happened, the world will fall to disorder and then chaos. Even the moment we're having right now was actually a big no-no for me. Naruto sighed. I just wanted to live quietly without having to be involved with the supernatural, except that one time when I saved Fia-chan. Things then began to go south from there and I met and knew different people from different factions. Luckily most of them are only the higher-ups. And, what are you planning to do now, Naruto-sama? Searsex addressed politely, surprising the other devils in his group. The Mao called him with the highest honorific possible? That had never been done before. Continue making ramen and drop out of school if possible. I've been doing so for more than 30 years after all. Can I do that, Rias? Unfortunately, you can't, Naruto-kun. Sona definitely won't let you leave since you had just joined the school. Rias said sheepishly. Besides, she'd rather to have him at school to get to know him more. Ah, he wailed with a rain cloud on top of his head. The group sweat dropped at him. Then, Lilith and Luminous came down from the second floor and rejoined them. Naruto proceeded to rub the latter's head before continuing. Even Lilith here doesn't want to have anything to do with the supernatural anymore, Wisey? She wanted to enjoy her life quietly and in peace since she was tricked by Lucifer and lost Adam, her first husband. Naruto wiped the fake tears on his face. They were so lovely until Lilith here ate the forbidden fruit and made their first sin. Wait, Searsex yelled out. Adam, as in Adam and Eve? The Lucifer asked in surprise. Naruto turned to Lilith who averted her eyes from the blonde. You didn't tell the devils about it? Ehehehe. Only Lucifer knew about it. Searsex and the others fell back to their seats, groaning as they learned another vital information. I'm surprised they're not surprised about the other news, Naruto-sama. Luminous said with a small smile. Wait, what news? Did we miss anything? Rias asked. She had made sure that she paid attention to what the blonde said from the start until now. God is dead? Naruto said as he casually sipped his tea. Whaattt. Even Grafia didn't bother to keep up her facade from listening to Naruto's story. He's dead, but he'll reform in another 5 to 8 billion years later like before. So don't worry about it. Naruto waved his hand nonchalantly. All of you won't be there to see him return anyway. The blonde muttered sadly, but Koneko, Lilith and Luminous heard him. The latter two weren't worried about it since they were basically immortal, while the former couldn't help but to think what it was like to be a true immortal. The devils were holding their heads as they tried to take in the information. Luminous got the message from Naruto as she went to the kitchen to make some hot chocolates for them. Naruto and Lilith were talking to each other while they let the group calm down and Koneko had rejoined them. They had learned too much information in a span of a few minutes and probably couldn't learn more. Rias, however, wanted to ask him one thing. She knew that she wouldn't be able to add him into her peerage, but perhaps with some connection that Naruto had, he could help her with the problem her parents made. Naruto-kun? Yes, Rias? I need your help with something. The younger redhead fidgeted before looking at him in the eyes. Sure, while I try to be neutral, I won't hesitate to help my friend. Rias smiled at him before taking a deep breath and bowed at him. I want you to help me the engagement my parents made with another family. Oi, stop bowing, a beautiful girl like you shouldn't bow easily to someone, you know. Naruto said, gaining a giggle from the redhead. Now, what's with your engagement? To see you desperately asking for help like this must have meant that your fiancé is an asshole. Why, you're not wrong. He only wants me for my title as the heiress of the House of Gremory and my body. He's an arrogant and selfish bastard that thinks because of his family's immortality, he can do what he wants. Ah, yup. A fucking shithead that needs the 10-feet pole inside his asshole to be pulled out. Then, will you help me, Naruto-kun? Naruto nodded without hesitation. Sure, no problem. But, why is your brother not doing anything regarding the engagement? I mean, he's one of the 4 Satans, right? As a Satan, he is not allowed to side with any of the remaining pillars and has to be neutral about it. Naruto quirked a brow. What a load of bullshit. If it was me, I would throw that title away to save my sister. Naruto then turned to Lucifer, who's still drinking his hot chocolate. Oi, girly boy. Searsex then looked up at Naruto before pointing at himself. Yes, you. Come here. Searsex did so. He didn't care about his reputation anymore. Nope, thank you very much. He'd like to be on the good side of the man in front of him. When he glanced at Rias, even her sister didn't seem to mind about it. I want you to cancel Rias' engagement and let her fall in love of her own choice. Naruto demanded bluntly. Shit, I sound like those Uchiha. Searsex then gave him the brightest smile he could make, surprising his sister. He had expected this when Rias was whispering to Naruto just now. Very well, I can do that easily. Rias turned to her brother with wide eyes. Wait, that easy? You're not afraid of the backlash from the Elder Council like you said before? Ria-tan, what do you think those old farts can do against someone who killed gods who had conquered multiple worlds, ended the civil war by himself and created a moon for the underworld? Searsex laughed gleefully as he turned to his sister. Rias turned back to Naruto again. That was you. Oops, I didn't tell you. Naruto scratched the back of his head. Sorry, I forgot. EHE? What do you mean by EHE? Don't you know that women in the underworld desire you to be their husband after they heard Grafia is married to my brother? Even my mother was the same and made my father furious, but he knew that he couldn't do anything against someone with that much power. Ouch! Naruto put a hand on his heart with a fake hurt look on his face. Fia-chan is married? He asked, ignoring the last part about her mother. Why yes, and she and my niece Sama have a 10-year-old boy named Milikas. So stop flirting with her, Rias said with her arms crossed under her bust, making it more impressive than before. Inwardly, she was happy that she finally got Naruto over her sister-in-law, but she didn't know what news she would receive soon. Ah, that's nice, I guess. Naruto dropped his head on the table while Lilith patted his head gently. Actually, Searsex began nervously with Grafia standing beside him. He took a picture of Lilith and Naruto quietly and pocketed his phone. Oh, dear Lucifer, his sister would kill him after the lies all this time. Rias looked at her brother and sister-in-law. We're not married, and Milikas is not Grafia's son. Searsex gave the younger devils a wry laugh as they were frozen on the spot. Anyway, Grafia and I will return to the underworld and annul your engagement with Riser Fenix, Ria-tan. Congratulations for being free from the engagement. Bye-bye. Searsex quickly prepared the magic circle since he knew what his queen would do. Grafia placed a quick peck on Naruto's cheek, making the blonde blush before she winked at him and disappeared. What the hell? A furious Rias shouted. After this, she would demand an explanation from their parents and brother. She'd make sure of it. After all, she had been fed lies since the day she was born. Is there anything important that we need to be gathered now, Lucifer-sama? Asked a blonde man looked like in his 30s. This was Lord Fenix. He had been preoccupied attempting to instill humility in his pompous second son until the Satan convened this meeting. The Lord of House Fenix had been attempting to accomplish this for a few years since he could feel a storm coming very fast, but he had no luck because his son was growing more and more conceited with each passing day. The other elders too were looking at Lucifer alongside the other Satan. Yes, actually, a demand had been made regarding Rias Gremory and Riser Fenix engagement. And what is it, Lucifer-sama? Lord Fenix asked again. He and his wife had been discussing ways to get Rias out of this marriage since they felt sorry for the young woman. However, the elders kept pushing for the marriage. They really shouldn't have made the engagement back then and went against the elders, even though this benefited the pure devils if they knew that their son would turn like this. The one who demanded it wants the engagement to be annulled and no more marriage proposal for Rias Gremory. Searsex smiled as he spoke. The announcement got a lot of disagreement from the elders except for the three great Satans and Lord Fenix, who breathed in relief inwardly. And Lady Lilith too agreed with her. Boyfriend, I guess. Searsex poured more oil. Silence overwhelmed the meeting hall as Searsex put up a picture of Lilith petting someone's head which was buried on the table. Wah. But how? We thought Lady Lilith was dead all this time, said an elder. We had to get Lady Lilith back. Her place is with us. Pure blood devils. She was not dead actually. She was kidnapped by Rizavam Riven Lucifer and was being experimented by him and Hades to create more devils. This blonde man here rescued her, jumped into Hades' territory and killed Rizavam before he erased Hades' memories. Another silence engulfed the hall while Searsex was smirking inwardly. It was so good to see they were silenced like this. He had been wanting to do this for a very long time, ever since they put his sister into an arranged marriage. Oh, and for you who ask me to bring her back, Lady Lilith herself has declared that she doesn't want to have anything to do with the supernatural anymore, especially devils, and I recommend you not to do anything since this blonde-haired young man here. Searsex pointed at the head before he threw another bomb and smirked. is the one who decimated the entire old Satan faction by himself and created the moon. Grafia herself had confirmed that this person is the same one that saved her years ago. This time, Searsex heard several elders passing out from the news before hitting the floor. He smirked inwardly. How had he been wishing for this day to happen? And, no, even with combined forces of 3 factions, he will massacre us since he had killed gods that came from other planets way before God existed on Earth. This man here literally predates anything that we know, and I'm 100% certain that angels and fallen angels don't know anything about him and his origin, which he shared with me and Grafia. Searsex ended, not mentioning his sister's name and her peerage unless he wanted them to target his sister. Oh, and last one, I promise. The final information, even God himself is only at least at this man's 10% of raw power. So yeah, I want to build an alliance with this man and I hope none of you fuck up. Toodle-oo motherfuckers. Searsex stood up and turned around before he stopped. But, honestly, I really wish you'd disobey my order since I want to see all of you get killed by him since you fucked with my sister's life, bye-bye. Searsex said without a care, surprising every elders in the room including the group of Satans before the latter followed him and his queen. Sir Chan, Searsex? The 3 Satans called for the redhead Satan who was walking with his queen. The redhead Lucifer turned around and greeted his friends. Hello, my dear friends. Searsex smiled brightly, creeping them out. What a nice night today, isn't it? It's been a while since I felt this free. Searsex, is what you said true? About Lady Lilith not wanting to have anything to do anymore with the supernatural? Searsex nodded at the green-haired Satan. Ajuka groaned. The wife of the original Lucifer had made up her mind and that was final. And about the young man, is he really the one from several hundred years ago? Searsex nodded again to Falbium this time. Mode Tilda, since they already ask what I want to ask, how does he look? The blondie, I mean Tilda. Instead of Searsex, this time it was Grafia who answered, the only female Satan. The 2 of them had been rivals for the seat of Satan Leviathan back then and kept being rivals until now. He is as handsome as the day I met him and incredibly powerful too since he had conquered gods that had devoured multiple worlds when they came to Earth. But Grafia-chan, you're married. Seraphal pouted. You should let me have him then. Who says that I'm married? Grafia tilted her head to the side with a smirk. Besides, Naruto-sama isn't a thing that you can claim for your own, and he also has Luminous San and Lady Lilith with him. The 3 Satans' eyes widened like saucers at Grafia before they turned to Searsex, who was nervously slipping away from them. Searsex. The redhead Satan ran away from their friends. The news regarding Grafia, the maid of Lucifer, wasn't married to Searsex was one thing that will disrupt the devil's world. Another thing that they were worried about was the balance of the 3 factions, with now the hero of the civil war was showing himself along with the lady of the underworld who was his girlfriend. The 2 male Satans rubbed their foreheads as they could feel headaches coming, especially complaints from the publics and the Elder Council when they regained their sanity. Naruto grunted after he finished making ramen for him and his friends from school. He dropped to an empty seat joining the young devils. That's a long sigh, Foxy-kun. Is there anything wrong? Naruto looked at Akano, who rested her breasts on top of the table. Koneko had plopped onto his lap, drawing the ire from Luminous and Lilith before the latter went up to her room, checking the new girl in the family. Well, yeah, my whole plan is ruined because of what happened tonight. And it's only a day after I joined school too. Plan? Is Foxy-kun planning something terrible for us? Asked the raven-haired girl with a sensual look. I don't know if you're doing it on purpose or not, but I'm gonna ignore you. Naruto said with a stony face, then began to feed Koneko slowly since she got a cat tongue. I was planning for a big prank, you know, pretending that I don't know anything about the supernatural world. Pranking the hell out of them and finally reveal myself to the 3 factions sometime later. But after what happened tonight, I don't think it's possible anymore. Pranking, huh? Rias pursed her lips as she glared at the blonde human. She was still pissed off since her brother and parents lied to her all this time. She wanted to storm out from here and went to her parents' home for explanation, but she couldn't. Her heart wasn't ready to hear the truth yet. Don't be so sad, Foxy-kun. Akano said before slurping her noodles. Arid tilde, this is so good. Thanks. Naruto turned to Rias, who was staring at her no-fat ramen. You alright? He asked her, concern about the heiress since her brother just dropped a news that might change her life forever. Rias shook her head. She wasn't fine at all. Don't worry, everything will be alright. I promise. Naruto smiled at the redhead Gremory. There must be a reason behind the lies that they put you through. There is always a reason for a lie to exist. The red-haired heiress looked at Naruto and gave him a small smile. Can you come with me when I asked my parents about it? This happens because of you after all, so I want you to take responsibility. Naruto blinked a few times at her. Rias waved her hands in panic when she saw the confused look on his face. It's okay if you don't, Naruto, however interrupted her before she could say anything else. Sure, I don't mind accompanying you to see your parents when you're ready. Thanks, Naruto-kun. I still don't understand why I'm at fault here though. Ria's sweat dropped at the blonde as she glowered at him. The blonde laughed sheepishly as he rubbed the back of her head. Then he remembered what he was gonna ask her. You're gonna tell the sea tree heir about this, aren't you? Rias blinked at him. Well, since this happens in our territory, I have to let her know about this matter. The redhead then began to slurp her ramen. Wow. Akeno isn't kidding when she said that this is so good. Naruto sighed. Fine. Do what you want. Naruto-senpai? Koneko called from his lap as she rubbed her head to his chests. Both Akeno and Rias felt their eyes twitching at the attention Naruto was giving to the Neko show. Yes, Neko-chan? Why do you smell like a dragon? Huh? I do? Koneko nodded. At this point, Rias, Akeno and Kiba had stopped eating. The latter had finished his stamina ramen in a blink since it was delicious though. They waited for Naruto's answer. That's probably from Diedrig or the Welsh dragon as you called him. Why you have the boosted gear? Rias stuttered, dropping her chopstick. Yeah, I took it from his previous wielder who died around 30 years ago. Naruto rubbed the back of Kaneko's cat ears as he continued. I revived her after that and replaced her memories of her going on an expedition and returned with the result of it. Why did you do it? Naruto made an almost imperceptible sigh. Then he explained about what he thought about the rivalry between the two dragons only brought suffering to their wielders and the ones around them. He told them that he decided to end it forever when Albion came for him. If you can extract sacred gears, then can you give them to someone else? Kiba asked. Yup. Can a pureblood devil use sacred gears? Rias asked. Since God is dead, yes you can. Naruto then turned to Kiba. I felt that you were holding back the true power of your sacred gear. Would you like an input from this incredibly old sage? Naruto grinned at Kiba whose demeanor was darkening, then Naruto's grin fell as he recognized that look. Oh man. Another one consumed by hatred. Who did you lose? Parents? Sisters? Brothers? Friends? Kiba glared at the blonde, his eyes narrowed dangerously. The chopstick in his hand was snapped in two. Naruto just looked at him as if he wasn't affected by it. Rias wanted to admonish the blonde from her peerage but Naruto beat her by a mile. A piece of advice for you kid. Naruto sat straight, his carefree attitude gone. If you want to have your revenge, do it. However, do not ever let your hatred consume you and make you turn against your friends. He paused, letting Kiba to take in what he said and continued. I have seen someone who had the exact same eyes as yours and he was my best friend and the only brother I have in all but blood before I killed him. Why? It's simple. It's because he killed someone who loved him with all her heart, one of my friends that stood together against the goddess. Naruto said sadly as Rias and her peerage listened to his words carefully, including Kiba whose eyes softened a bit. What made him do all that? Kiba asked and Naruto smiled a little at his fellow blonde, feeling glad that he gave him a chance to tell his story. Itachi Uchiha, Sasuke's brother, killed everyone in his clan including elders and children. Naruto began, how he hoped that he could just turn back the time and change the past. Hatred and vengeance consumed Sasuke, he pushed everyone aside and turned into a loner with only one goal in his life, to kill his brother. Sasuke became the golden goose of our home and everyone gave him all he wanted since he came from one of the founding clans of our village and was one of the last of his clan. Naruto paused, taking a breath as he recalled the memory. After our village was invaded by other village, Itachi showed up to capture me and Sasuke saw him. He tried to kill his brother that time but was overpowered. Then Itachi put him in an illusion of the day of the massacre to make Sasuke watch them again. He was in a coma, I left to get a medic to heal him. We got back home and he was healed. Sasuke wasn't happy that his brother came for me instead of him. Then he challenged me to prove that he was the better one between the two of us. Before things escalated, our teacher stopped us. But then Sasuke decided that our home didn't give him enough power and was jealous of me since I got stronger than him in a span of few weeks. He left, turned traitor and went to another traitor who promised him power. Did he get his revenge? Rias asked for Kiba since the blonde was drowned in Naruto's story. Oh, he did. 3 years later, Sasuke got his revenge by killing his brother, but it didn't end there. Naruto laughed dejectedly. Someone told him that the massacre was orchestrated by the temporary leader of our village since we were invaded by the organization that wanted me and put our real leader into a coma. Sasuke attacked the 5-Cage summit and was branded an international criminal. He managed to leave but almost died if not for his teammate. Quote, then he ambushed the temporary leader of our village on their way back home and killed him, but again, he was still not satisfied. Naruto smiled sadly, the light in his eyes dimmed considerably. Kiba winced at the story that he listened to as he looked at Naruto who stared back at him. I saw him that time and that was the first of his attempt to kill Sakura-chan, the girl who loved him ever since we were kids. I managed to rescue her at the last moment and saw there were no more light in his eyes, it was darkness, fueled by hatred and vengeance. Then, he thought that our village was the reason for his brother's suffering and he decided to destroy it. The peerage shivered as they saw the look Naruto gave them. Even Luminous could only put a hand on his shoulder to calm him down, making the blonde stabilized his emotion. His plan continued on until our temporary reconciliation since we had to fight a goddess back then. When the fight was over, he wanted to kill the leaders of our villages and caused world revolution. Sakura-chan tried to make him see reasons, but like I said, he was already beyond saving since hatred and vengeance consumed him. Eventually he decided to cut all ties with us permanently by killing the girl. I failed to save her this time since I really didn't expect that he would drown further into the darkness, Naruto chuckled sadly. I snapped, and in our final fight, I stopped holding back and killed him. Naruto let himself to relax as he sighed wistfully. Back then, if he didn't kill Sakura-chan, maybe there was still hope for him to come back to us. Naruto ended with a small chuckle. Then he looked at the devils one by one before turning to Kiba whose fist was gripped so tight it drew blood. Listen well kid, once you go down the path of an avenger, there will be no more salvation. You won't be satisfied since after you get your revenge, you will have no purpose for living and you will start thinking that even Rias herself is one of the reason for your suffering in the end. Naruto said wisely, you'll either be a broken human, or someone that will descend into madness until one of your friends will be the one who stops you by ending your life. You can get your revenge, but just make sure that it won't consume you. Sasuke didn't really have anyone with him. Myself alone wasn't enough to stop him. But you, Naruto pointed at the blonde. You have Rias, Akeno-san and Koneko-chan. Naruto then turned to Akeno, but the raven-haired girl averted her eyes with a look of hurt in her eyes when Naruto managed to get a glimpse of them. Koneko didn't dare to look at him as she kept staring at her bowl of ramen, but Naruto noticed the distraught her heart was giving out. Rias had her problem solved already and she was now consoling the sniffling Kiba. The idea of seeking vengeance must be the boy's central motivation throughout his entire life, and when someone explained what would occur if he continued down the road, he was unable to accept it and broke down. Your peerage has a lot of problems, huh, Rias? Rias didn't say anything but gave him a sad smile. It was true. She had been neglecting her peerage's problems since she was busy thinking about getting out of her engagement with Fenix. But now, since she was free and she would do her best about her family's problems. The moment though was halted since there was a magic circle forming on the floor before a blonde man wearing a burgundy-colored blazer and pants with unbuttoned white-collared shirt coming up from a tower of flame. Then, another magic circle was formed on Naruto's side before Graphia herself came out of it. What does this mean, Rias? The blonde man asked heatedly at the red-haired heiress. Rias' peerage had stood up and stood beside their king to protect her. Fenix-sama, your father asked you to not do anything rash, Graphia said with a stern gaze. Who's this? Naruto asked as Luminous went up to the second floor to get Lilith. She knew that this was going to get interesting really fast. He's Fenix-sama, Naruto-sama. Graphia bowed to the blonde ninja. He's also the ex-fiancé of Rias-sama. I implore you to not do anything until Searsex-sama comes here. Graphia asked of him. It was not for his safety, but Riser's. Naruto nodded, but he knew that this guy would somehow easily push a button either on himself or Luminous. He was betting on himself in this matter. Speaking of Lumi-chan, where the hell is she? The blonde looked around but couldn't find the Biju. Rias, I demand you to not cancel our engagement, Riser said with wings of flames forming behind his back. Oh wow. Another Uchiha look-alike. Naruto frowned at the man. He was not bad looking per se, but his attitude just put everything else down the drain. I told you already, Riser, I don't want to marry you. Besides, Lucifer-sama had said the final words, didn't he? Riser's face twisted into an expression of frustration as he grit his teeth before two more magic circles formed inside the store. One was Searzek's Lucifer himself and the other was a couple with blonde hair. Got no pick for Lord Fenix, but you can just imagine him in Riser's look with a better attitude. Searzek-sama, Lord Fenix, Lady Fenix. Graphia and Rias Peerage bowed at them except for Naruto, who only crossed his arms watching the devils as he sat casually on his seat. He never bowed to anyone before, not because of arrogance or something like that, he just didn't care about formalities. If my place is gonna be a place for supernaturals gathering, maybe I should rebuild this place. Naruto snapped his fingers and the inside of the store became bigger, almost 3 times than the previous one, and could fit around 100 people, multiple new tables and chairs, and a longer counter. The devils watched in amazement before a sound of ramen slurping could be heard. They turned to the sound and found Naruto was enjoying his ramen as if watching a soap opera. Don't mind me, go on, he said with a smile. Rias and the others' sweat dropped at the blonde. Then they heard footsteps coming down from the second floor, revealing Lilith and Luminous, who sat and stood with Naruto respectively. Lord and Lady Fenix, who knew who they were, turned pale. The latter had been informed by her husband regarding Lilith and Naruto, but Riser didn't get a chance to hear what his father said before he stormed out of his house with magic circle locking to Rias' magic signature. So, this is one of my descendants. Lilith commented a bit too loud for the others to hear, not amazed at all at the blonde-haired devils. I see you remade the store already, Naru. I've always told you that it was too small. And who the hell are you? Riser yelled out. Before then he leered at the woman up and down and grinned to himself. Oh shit, thought the devils, who knew Lilith's identity and what was going on in Riser's mind. On second thought, you might be a good addition as my second wife, since I can sense that you're a pureblood devil. Searzek stood in front of Rias and her peerage before he pushed them behind him. Lord and Lady Fenix and Graphia took a few steps back as Graphia stood in front of them preparing her magic in case something happened. However, Riser, being a doohy bag he was, thought that they were giving him a way to approach the redhead sitting beside Naruto. The aforementioned blonde facepalmed. Just the thing that I needed to end the night. Let's pray that Lilith doesn't erase him on the spot. I don't want to deal with this shit this late. Lucifer, Lilith called, her voice devoid of any emotions and her expression turned ice cold. Riser's fire would already have been extinguished by the Amaterasu for 7 days and 7 nights if she had the Mangekyo Sharingan, since her eyes were locked at him as if she wanted to kill him with her gaze. Why yes, my lady, the Lucifer squeaked, drawing Riser's attention for a moment, but then he ignored it. Either his life or his whole family and clan. Choose. Riser raised a brow at that before laughing at Lilith. Trying to act tough, huh? I like it. I just can't wait until you in my bed. Naruto double-face palmed himself. Rias and the others could only pray to whatever being out there, to Naruto to solve this problem without killing everyone in the underworld. Luminous gave the blonde man a small smirk which Riser noticed. Step aside, you lowly whore. Even if you looked a lot like the maid of Lucifer, you are not even in the same class as her. Naruto froze in his spot, his eyebrow twitched at Riser's remark at Luminous. Ah, he did it. The one fucking thing that anyone shouldn't do. Searzex and Graphia turned pale, as Searzex whispered to himself. Rias and her peerage and Lady and Lord Fenix could still hear him though. What is it, Onisama? What did that bastard do? Rias asked nervously as she wondered what made Naruto stop reacting. She noticed that her brother's visage turned pale and couldn't help but also felt afraid. What have you learned from the history of our civil war, Rias? The part before Naruto-sama killed over 100 devils in a few seconds when she saved Graphia? Rias pondered a bit as she tried to recall the lesson. If I recall it correctly, it was after the lead devil made a comment about, Satan saves him. Hell no, Even I don't want to walk into my death. Searsex retorted before turning to Lord and Lady Fenix, who was already shedding a tear for her son. My deepest condolences, Fenix Dono. It's alright, Searsex-sama. The moment he insulted Lady Lilith, our son had lost his right to live. And when he did that to the maid of the hero of the Civil War, he signed his own death warrant. Searsex boy tilde? Naruto called the Lucifer with a creepy tune. Why yes, Naruto-sama. My dear here asked you the question right? Searsex nodded rapidly at the blonde. I'll rectify the question then, his life, his whole family and clan or the whole devil faction? Naruto asked with a genuine smile, but everyone knew that the wrath behind it was a lot bigger than every devil's combined. His life, Naruto-sama. Riser Fenix had insulted Lady Lilith and the maid of the hero of the Civil War. Death is a suitable punishment for him. Riser was surprised at the swift decision the Satan made, and then he caught what the latter said, the maid of the hero of the Civil War. Even the arrogant Riser knew about the history of the devils back in the Civil War. One other thing that he didn't miss, Lady Lilith, the name of mother of all devils. He realized he had dug his own grave. Before Riser could utter a word, Naruto snapped his fingers, teleporting all of them into the dimension he created. The devils were dumbstruck. Were they in the dimensional gap? If they were, how could they still be alive? They should have been erased by the nothingness of the dimensional gap as soon as they entered it. Naru, please broadcast this into the whole underworld. Naruto nodded at Lilith's request before he created a video recorder and made some clones to film it. Both Lord and Lady Fenix was surprised at the capability Naruto was showing, since the clones were real and not just an illusion. Naruto snapped his fingers again, and in the underworld there were large screens on the sky showing what was happening inside the dimension. Everyone looked up at the screen and gasped at the fact the wife of the original Lucifer was still alive. No one knew about it beside the elders and the three Satans, since they hadn't made it public yet. Let this be a warning to the whole underworld, for that Riser Fenix from Fenix clan had insulted me and my friends. Therefore, his punishment will be death dealt personally by us. Lilith then stepped forward, making Riser, whose face was already pale as a sheet, to fall onto his knees. Lady Lilith, please forgive me for my... Lilith blasted an orb of destruction at his hand, erasing it from existence. She didn't even bother to hear what Riser wanted to say. The audience thought that the Fenix would only grow an arm back, but eventually, nothing happened. Why isn't my power working? Simple, we suppressed your clan's bloodline, turning it useless. Luminous said with a smile before Riser's other hand was gone from his shoulders as if cut by something sharp. Riser screamed in pain as his parents watched him with a sad look. No matter what, they were still his parents, and they just couldn't stand watching him get hurt. But Riser had signed his death warrant when he insulted Lilith and Luminous, which in chain insulted the hero of the Civil War, Naruto himself. If only my power is working. I'll kill you, bitch. Naruto smiled at him, and then Riser's arms grew back. There, your power is back. Now it's my turn, since you insulted both my girlfriends, not once, but twice. Honestly, even though I'm omnipotent, I prefer doing things with my own hands, like making ramen, pranking people and helping those in needs. Including hurting someone who dares to say bad naughty words to my girlfriends. Naruto thrust his hand into Riser's chest before he grabbed his heart and ripped it out. Rrrrrrrrrrrghhhh. Rias and her peerage turned green as they observed the still beating heart in Naruto's bloodied hand. Lady Fenix began to cry and averted her gaze as she squinted, her eyes closed. As Riser writhed in agony, he let out a loud, pained bellow, but he soon realized that his power was helping him to recover. He still felt the pain though. Oh wow, he can restore his organs too? Naruto said in amazement before his smile turned into an evil grin. I guess I'll just slow your immortality and let them toy with you. You can't die, but the pain is still there, isn't it? This will be fun, Luminous remarked with a sinister chuckle. Her maid outfit reverted to her previous black gothic dress with an opened white collar, and her nails were sharpened like claws. Count me in, Naru. Lilith chimed in. Her overall look was still the same, but the color of her blouse turned black and her skirt went longer, dragging itself on the floor. Her hair was tied in a ponytail and her nails sharpened, the same as Luminous. In the underworld, Ruval, a man with blonde hair similar to Riser but more dignified, watched with a sad look while Ravel, a girl with twin-tail blonde hair, wearing a purple dress, was crying. They knew their brother's life was forfeit the moment he insulted Lilith, the lady of the underworld and the hero from the Civil War years ago. Riser's peerage was standing beside the two, watching as their king being tortured by the subjects of their worship, Lady Lilith and the blonde hero who created the moon. They wanted to go and save their king, but they knew they couldn't reach him since they couldn't feel their king's magical energy everywhere on Earth. "See, can we really do nothing, Ruvel ni sama?" Ravel asked tearfully at her brother. Ruvel shook his head. "Father and mother are there, and if they didn't do anything, then unfortunately, this is the end for Riser," the brother said sadly. Although his brother was arrogant and an asshole, he still loved him as his sibling. Ravel didn't say anything else. The horrified look on her face told them what she felt. The twin-tail-haired girl could only wince at the torture they were giving her brother and turned her eyes away at some moment that she couldn't bear to see. Back in the different dimension, Naruto was standing beside Sirzex and Lord Fenix. "You're not joining?" Sirzex questioned apprehensively. "No, mine was done. I'm not one who's into torturing people. I'd rather end their lives quickly. But those two are special cases. One is a madness incarnation and the other is the wife of the original Lucifer who you already know. Jugulars, eyes, lungs, pancreas, heart. So many toys, yet so little time." Everyone watching the broadcast got chills as Luminous laughed sinisterly. "Oh, for the guests, be warned that this won't be censored and it won't be pretty, trust me, I've seen what my maid can do. Make sure to cover your children's eyes and ears before you watch this," Naruto said to the camera. Luminous then created a cross that was used when Jesus died, one that'd been bathed with his blood. As if being pushed by something, Riser flew toward the cross, his arms wide open on each sides. The Fenix screamed in pain as he felt that the cross burning him. The Biju then created several stakes shaped like a cross before stabbing each of his limbs with it, pinning his legs and arms onto the wooden cross. Riser's bellow became more rough as the stakes burned his wrists and ankles. Creating holy crosses or artifacts weren't a problem for Luminous and Naruto. My, a disappointing descendant, screaming like a little girl just from the wooden cross Jesus died on. Lilith giggled like a child. "Do not worry, I'll make sure that before you embrace your death, you'll be tortured beyond what you imagined." With her nail, Lilith cut open Riser's stomach from his collarbone until his abdomen before ripping the skin open, showing his rib and organs. Then she pulled out his intestine. "Gah, ahahahahahaha." Lilith laughed maniacally at Riser's scream. As for Luminous, she pulled out Riser's eye before shoving it into his mouth and forcing the Fenix to swallow it. "Oh wow, look at what I found," Lilith said with a giggle. "Kidneys." She ripped them out before crushing them in her hands as she watched it slowly restored inside the Fenix body. Koneko, Kiba, Rias, Lady Fenix had thrown up at the cruelty the two women were showing them. Akano. She was wet, her breath was ragged, and she was touching herself as she ground her thighs together. Sirzex, Graphia and Lord Fenix were already green but didn't say anything. While they had seen things like this, the two women in front of them were more cruel than anyone they had encountered. "Let's see, what will happen if I destroy your brain, Tilda," Luminous said with a grin before then she cut off the top part of Riser's head, making the blood to sprout from it. Riser could only scream in pain as the maid did it. He didn't die, he couldn't since his power kept healing him. He watched as the woman pulled his brain out. She crushed it in her hand before wiping it on Riser's face. The devils in the underworld puked at it. They were devils, but their cruelty paled against the maid of the hero. It made them wonder who the real devil actually was. "Damn, those girls are crazy," Naruto said with a wince as he saw Lilith ripping out Riser's nails one by one from his fingers. "That hurts just from watching it." He rubbed his fingers. Are you really broadcasting this to the whole underworld?" Sirzex inquired before closing his eyes and wincing as he saw Lilith shred Riser's genital and thrust it into his mouth. Naruto nodded at his inquiry while he covered her brother down there. Sirzex and Lord Fenix, save for Kiba who's still pale from throwing up, covered their crotch. Naru is way bigger at 8 inches while still soft and almost 4 inches in girth. Lilith winked at her favorite blonde. "Should I tell the audience how big you are when you're hard, Naru Tilda?" Lilith asked erotically as she licked her lips. "Oi, That's a privacy of mine you're intruding, woman. I dare you to tell that. And how the hell did you know that? It's from Lumi-chan, isn't it? Lilith only looked at Naruto before the corner of her lips curled upwards. She threw him a challenging look, provoking her boyfriend. I double dare you. No more snuggling on bed if you opened your mouth. Lilith froze, her smirk fell. That's cheating. Lilith pouted. Fine, but let me tell you girls out there a few things about him. Lilith turned to the camera. He has unlimited stamina, bigger than my husband, the original Lucifer, can make an unlimited number of real clones of himself and the best part is he's still a virgin, but unfortunately, it was reserved already by his maid. But can you imagine the gangbangs with him alone? The women who heard that had nosebleed immediately, forgetting about the torture done on Riser. Some in the underworld who already had husbands passed out with a naughty smile on their faces, while the single ones were trying to imagine how something that big will fit inside them and the use of the clones. That's it, you're gonna get your punishment later. Naruto yelled with a red face from the embarrassment he got from Lilith. Oh, is Big Naru going to punish naughty Lilith here? The ex-wife of the original Lucifer asked as she groped her tits with her bloodied hands. Her face was flushed and there were strange heart marks in her eyes. She was panting hard as she looked at the camera with her tongue licking her lips. Lilith want Naru's bitch split Lilith into two. Unconsciously, one of Naruto's clones who was recording the torture moved forward to capture the mother of all devils' sensual look, making it clear for all the underworld to see. The men who were watching crossed their legs to cover up their boner as they watched the lady of the underworld act so you ally. The wives and girlfriends of the male devils didn't mind since they also had their own imagination for the bitch Naruto had. I can't believe one of my girlfriends is such a bitch. Hey, I'm a bitch, yes, but only for you. They can imagine anything about me, but you're the only one who is allowed to see me naked and touch me. Even if Lucifer comes back, I would still choose you over him. Oh wow, I'm touched. Naruto wiped a fake tear on his eyes before he deadpanned at the pouting girl. Just continue what you were doing already. Lumi-chan is already ripping out his innards. Lilith blinked before she turned to see Luminous was skinning the chicken alive. The devil sashayed her way to Luminous, drawing groans of disappointment from the male devils in the underworld before then their eyes glued to the mother of all devils' perfectly toned ass. Searsex and Lord Fenix then turned to Naruto when Lilith went back to torture Riser. There were crying anime tears as they glared at the blonde hero. The cameraman too turned to face Naruto. Lucky bastard. The male devils said altogether, either in his dimension or the underworld. The female devils however cursed at their ancestor. Lucky bitch. Shut up. You have your wives and girlfriends, right? Go bang them. The blonde retorted a bit too heatedly as he could somehow felt the ire of the male devils. When the two ladies were done with Riser, the man didn't even react to his surroundings. He simply collapsed, his mind broken by the torture he had endured at the hands of the two women. Naruto sighed and snapped his fingers to bring them back to his shop. Sorry, but you did this to yourself. Then, out of nowhere, 10 jet black spheres floated in circular motion behind Naruto. He didn't need to enter his 6-path sage mode anymore ever since he made a progress with Shinjutsu, enabling him to create the truth-seeking orbs with the maximum limit of 10. The devils were alarmed by those spheres since they gave off a dreadful feeling as though a touch from them could erase them from existence. One of the floating spheres landed in his hand before morphing into a kunai. When Naruto was about to stab the broken man sprawled down on the floor in front of him though, a woman stepped in front of Riser and kneeled to Naruto with her head on the floor. Please, I beg of you, Lord Naruto, at least spare my son's life. The abrupt plea surprised Naruto, and learning that the speaker was Riser's mother troubled him greatly. Look, lady. This is not my decision, but Lilith's. Naruto grunted out. Then, with her eyes dripping with tears, Lady Fenix raised her head and gave Naruto an unflinching gaze. I understand. However, I humbly ask for your pardon. Despite knowing that everything is his fault, I simply cannot imagine my own child being killed. I implore you. Then, if I ask you to trade your life for his, would you agree to do so? Naruto asked and Lady Fenix gave him a resolute nod. Blue eyes of different hues converged. Lord Fenix feared for the life of his wife because none of them gave in. He was aware of how stubborn her wife could occasionally be and that, if Riser didn't change, Situations like this would eventually caught up with them. Mother. Ruvel stood up, his face filled with dread. Ravel sobbed because she couldn't bear the thought of losing her mother as a result of his brother's doing. As Riser's peerage watched the two on the screen, they couldn't help but felt guilty in this matter since they didn't try to push their king to a better path. Many other devils from different families were also watching the Lady of House Fenix beg for the life of their son. They all agreed that the son was acting too arrogant and should be executed because he dared to ask the original Lucifer's wife to be his despite the fact that he was unaware of who she was. This evidently disappointed Lucifer's wife because they had been informed that the Lady of the Underworld didn't want to deal with them anymore, and that if she so wished, she could just ask her boyfriend to obliterate all the devils completely. When the elders told them that even the united powers of 3 factions would lose against her boyfriend, all the devils shivered. They only hoped that no one from their faction was stupid enough to make a move against him. Oh, how wrong they were. The situation was tense. It had only been a few seconds but it felt longer. Circex and Graphia didn't dare to move. Rias and the others felt bad for Lady Fenix since this was caused by her son. Luminous and Lilith were indifferent. Lord Fenix himself, however, was about to step up, but then Naruto gave out a small chuckle, startling the devils. "I like you," Naruto said before removing the kunai and the orbs. "This is how a parent should act." Naruto reached down and gently took her by the hand, helping her to her feet. "Up you go, then," the blonde said with a smile. "I've never actually knew my parents because they died within the first hour of my birth, but they left some of their life force inside me and I got to meet them once and they taught me that a true family will do anything to save each other. Lady Fenix, you are someone I can respect without a doubt." Naruto then moved past the blonde woman, who was still staring and whose face was flushed from the praise. He put his right palm on Riser's head and pumped his chakra into the sun mark. Soon, her son groaned before he passed out. The devils were speechless. Lady Fenix and her son were actually spared by the blonde young man, contrary to their expectations. Additionally, he did something to their son caused him to somehow regain his mind before passing out. He might need a bit of therapy, but I can guarantee you that he'll be fine. Well, as long as he doesn't repeat what happened today. Naruto glanced at Lilith and Luminous who were fuming at him. "I'm so dead," Naruto muttered nervously before Lady Fenix pulled him into a hug, surprising the blonde ninja. Thank you so much, Lord Naruto." The blonde ninja rubbed the woman's back before he let her go. Then he turned to Lord Fenix who flinched at his gaze. "Grow a spine, old man. You got balls, don't you?" Naruto said with a grin, leaving the husband dumbfounded before returning to his girlfriends. The devils were gulping as they saw the expressions on the two women's faces. "Sorry?" Naruto said as he rubbed the back of his neck. "You better be. This is basically mutiny, you know?" Lilith said with her arms folded under her bust. "What mutiny? You're one of my girlfriends, right? Not some kind of egoistic bitch that has a foot-long stick stuck in her ass?" Once more, everyone was taken aback by the bluntness with which he addressed the mother of all devils. "Oh no, but I'd rather your stick inside my when the time comes." Lilith responded in a sensual manner while licking Naruto's ear, making the other devils in the room and those watching the broadcast had nosebleed. "You should remember that I'll be his first, bitch," Luminous said ominously beside the woman, scaring Lilith a bit. I know, relax, Lumi." The woman raised her hands to calm the Biju down. She wasn't going to hide that she was afraid of this person in front of her. She couldn't care less if the other devils saw this. Lilith, though, wasn't finished. She took another look at the camera before saying while coughing into her palm. "Since this matter is over due to my boyfriend's meddling, oi. From now on, the main house of Fenix clan serves me and my friends. Anyone who insulted or disregarded them because of this incident means they are directly insulting me and an immediate death will be their punishment." Lilith then turned to Circex. "Make sure that you put out the new law that I mentioned." The Lucifer nodded at her before the woman turned back to the camera. "That is all from me." The announcement shook the underworld and the Fenix clan since that meant the highest position one will ever achieve in their lives as devils. Not even the seat of Mao compared to the new position the main house of Fenix acquired. Lilith then turned to Naruto. "Do you have anything to add, Naru?" The camera then focused on the blonde-haired young man with whiskers on his cheeks and 2 bangs framing his face. "Please visit our ramen store in Kuo Town?" And since my store is a neutral zone, there will be no squabbles here or I'll give you a slap on the wrist. Naruto said with a chuckle while rubbing the back of his head. That's it? Searsex asked as he deadpanned at Naruto. Hey, my ramen is worldwide famous and is the food of gods. Even some Fallens had tried them and they become my favorite customers and friends. Naruto retorted with a scoff. Anyway, that is all. Good night all devils out there, have a good life, and God bless you all with all his grace. Hallelujah. Naruto ordered his clones before they slammed the cameras onto the ground, destroying it. All the devils including those in the store got a massive headache from Naruto's parting words after that. Lord and Lady Fenix then walked toward Naruto and Lilith. Lord Naruto, Lady Lilith, we thank you for your generosity. The former said with a bow followed by his wife whose eyes were still locked onto Naruto's face. Stop with that lord crap. I hate formalities, just call me Naruto. As for this woman, just call her whatever you want. The group's sweat dropped at the blonde but nodded nevertheless except for Lilith who was pouting at him. The group of older devils prepared their magic circles to return to the underworld. They still had some things to do after all. Fia-chan, don't forget to come and visit us anytime you want. Don't worry Naruto-sama. I'll make sure to have spare time to come here and get to know you well. Grafia smiled beatifically at the blonde man. She now knew a bit about Naruto. He was not someone who would throw his powers here and there. He had outgoing and warm attitude, and most of all, he was a deeply compassionate man. Naruto nodded before the Lucifer and his queen, alongside Lord and Lady Fenix left the store with their passed-out son. The blonde then slumped down on one of the couches he created out of nothing. Man, I'm burnt out. Naruto then turned to Rias and her peerage. What are you guys staring at? And to Kano, you need to wipe your legs since you're all wet down there. I don't want any of your fluids dripping inside my store. The blonde handed her a napkin. Era? I didn't realize it. I didn't expect for you to boldly declare that your store will be a neutral zone, Naruto-senpai. Kiba said with a small smile. Koneko then walked up to Naruto. Pats. The immortal picked up Koneko and put her on his lap before patting her head and earning a purr from the Neko show. Kiba's right Naruto-kun. Rias said as she sat down on the empty spot beside Naruto as Lilith had retired to her room already and Luminous was busy checking the new girl. Akano who had wiped herself clean took a seat in front of Naruto and their king. Shouldn't you ask for our permissions first before you declare your store as a neutral zone? The redhead devil asked with a sly smile. Shouldn't you ask for my permission to have this territory to be under your jurisdiction? Ah, ha ha ha. Arid tilde bucko lost an argument? Foxy-kun sure is a good one tilde. He isn't wrong, bucko. Checkmate. Koneko followed up. Must you call me that, Akano? Yes, I must. The raven-haired girl beamed a smile at the blonde who shot her the most flat look he could make. Rias pouted, not because of what Naruto said to her, but at her queen and Naruto's interaction. The blonde chuckled before he turned to Koneko. You know Neko-chan? It's been bugging me for a while, but I might get this out right now since Kiba already listened to what I want to say. Koneko perked up. She looked downcast but still paid attention to what Naruto wanted to say. You know how to use senjutsu, don't you? Koneko bobbed her head a little. Then before she could realize it, he felt something different from the warmth that Naruto usually gave out. It was more potent and she felt relaxed around him as her cat ears and tails popped out. She turned around and looked at the changes in Naruto's eyes. Gone were his cerulean blue eyes replaced with orange-colored orbs. The pattern in his eyes were like a mix between a fox and a toad making it a cross-shaped pupil. Rias and the others too were amazed at the powerful feeling Naruto gave out. It was as if he changed into a different person although they realized he still had the same form. But, how? Why? Why don't you go mad? Naruto grinned at the Neko show. I'm a true sage, probably the only human that can use senjutsu without being affected by the malice of the planet. Wait, Naruto-kun. Rias called from the other side of the table, making the blonde to turn at her and the others. They noticed his eyes now were different than before. What happened to your eyes? Oh, you mean the shape, right? They nodded at his inquiry. Let's just say my original sage form was based on the toads, hence the bar-like one. Then at the war, my sage mode was further enhanced by super great sage who was my great ancestor, thus the eyes. How? strong are you in this form? Koneko asked, curiosity clearly expressed in her voice. I remember that back then I was able to move as fast as Kaguya. Wait, who's Kaguya? Rias asked again. Oh, she's Super Great Sage's mother and the goddess I told you about. And yeah, basically she's also my Super Great 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 Grandmother since I was her grandson's reincarnation, which was Super Great Sage's son. Rias groaned as she tried to make sense what Naruto was saying before she summarized. To summarize it, you are the reincarnation of the son of this super great sage who was the son of this goddess. Naruto nodded, happy that she caught what he said. So, basically, you're demigod even before you transcended? Yes, you can say so, but it only happens after the war since I died once back then and super great sage and Sakura-chan revived me. This is so confusing, Koneko said as her eyes twirled in spirals. Someday, I'll show you my memories so you can understand me better, Neko-chan. Rias raised her hand immediately. I want to see them too. Yes. Anyway, we're getting off track here. What are we talking about again? The only human that can use senjutsu, Naru-senpai. Right. Anyway, the malice can only affect humans that is trying to use senjutsu. That is how I made the rule back before I took back all the chakra in the world when my era ended. Yup. To simplify it, I made humans not able to use chakra anymore and only a specific race and perhaps some living beings that I deemed worthy is able to use chakra and senjutsu. That race is the Yukai and I still haven't seen any other beings that can utilize senjutsu. Maybe they're non-existent in this era. Of course I left them enough to live since chakra is life force for everything. But they have nothing more than that. That was also one of the reason why normal humans in this era are weaker than the previous ones. Naruto went on a tangent without letting them to interrupt him. To be honest, I was listening to Usubeni no Tasuki from Oath Under Snow Prilia when making this part. It suited the part where Kuroka saved and left Koneko. You know, I met this one cat girl Yukai several years ago. I think she's a Nekosho too. Koneko looked at him with wide eyes. Flashback. In a small alleyway, a raven-haired woman with cat ears and tails sprawled on the ground, her body wounded and there were traces of magic being used on her. Her kimono were torn here and there and the woman herself was not in a good condition. Hey, you okay? The Nekosho opened her eyes and looked at the blurry figure in front of her. She jumped on her feet immediately before her knees wobbled and fell onto the man's chest. It's okay, I'm not here to hurt you. The blonde tried to calm the woman as he felt her heart in distraught and fear. I'll help you. Don't worry. I promise I won't hurt you. The woman felt something warm from his words. It reminded her of her mother, the feeling of protectiveness that she felt from her and she had missed it for a very long time. The woman gave him a small nod before eventually, she passed out. Flashback ends. She told me her name was Kuroka and she was running away from the devils since she killed her king. The devils were looking at Koneko in worry as they knew who Kuroka was. Sorry, I guess I spoke too much. Naruto said as he noticed the look on the devil's face. No, please continue. Koneko said and the blonde nodded at her request. When I asked why, she told me that the devil wanted to do something bad to her sister. I think it was related to senjutsu. Naruto chuckled sadly since the situation was too goddamn similar to Itachi and Sasuke. The king of her peerage wanted to experiment on her sister, Chiron, but Kuroka found out about it and decided to end her king's life. She went berserk on him but not because of the influence of senjutsu, rather it was because she wanted to protect Chiron from him. After Kuroka did that, she didn't have any choice but left Chiron behind since she didn't want to turn her sister into a fugitive. Naruto took a deep breath as he recalled what the stray cat told him. Kuroka then told me how her sister might think that she abandoned her, the last family she had, and how Kuroka went mad because of using senjutsu, probably scaring the poor girl for the rest of her life. Koneko looked down as she pressed her head to Naruto's chest and contemplated what he shared with her. The truth behind Kuroka's incident years ago in the underworld. Kuroka had been coming here to Kuo lately this past few years, you know. Naruto said, surprising the red-haired heiress and her peerage. They never noticed the presence of another devil entering Kuo all this time. She told me that she found Chiron and had been watching her from afar. However, one day, she came back home crying saying that her sister threw away the name Kuroka gave her. I asked Kuroka what her sister's name now, but she didn't want to tell me. Naruto sighed. It pained him to see one of his close friends acting like that. She cried for a full week here and it actually hurt me to see her like that. And, where is this Kuroka now? She's in Kyoto. She told me that she went to see a woman named Yasaka or something. I've never got the chance to see her benefactor, but I hope this Yasaka is a good woman. If you want to, I'll introduce you to Kuroka and have her teach you things that you need to know about being Yukai. Oh, by the way, Rias. The redhead turned to Naruto, who had a serious look on his face, scaring her a bit. Kuroka is under my protection. I hope you don't tell anyone about this or I'll bring war to the entire devil faction. Rias nodded rapidly. There was no way in hell that she would tell this to anyone. I forget to tell Searsex to revoke her fugitive status. Fuck. Everyone deadpanned at the blonde-haired ninja before the latter then turned to see Koneko crying in his chest. Hey, what's wrong, Neko-chan? The girl sobbed as she gripped his Samya tighter. It's me, she stuttered. Huh? I'm Kuroka's sister. Oh, okay. Naruto rubbed the top of her head while Luminous just pinched the bridge of her nose. She had came down when Naruto was starting to tell the story about the stray cat he picked up years before. She knew her host's brain hadn't caught up yet with the information Koneko gave, but soon enough he'd make a dramatic yell, she guaranteed it. Rias, Akeno and Kiba too were waiting for the blonde's reaction eagerly since they knew Naruto's mind trying to catch up with what Koneko just said. The king and queen even had their phones recording the thing that was about to happen. What? He stood up suddenly, making Koneko fell to the floor with a yelp. The look on his face was priceless for Rias and Akeno. They were going to use this as blackmail material for sure in the future. Why you're Kuroka's sister? Sharon? The girl rubbed her head before nodding at the dumbfounded Naruto. He looked at her up and down before cupping his chin. You sure you're her sister? Naruto tilted his head to the side before he made a motion with his hands under his chests as if grabbing something. Since, she has those massive flesh bags and you're flat? That earned a kick to his face from Koneko, making Naruto fly out of the door Luminous had opened since she guessed this already. Rias and the others laughed out loud at the blonde's predicament as Koneko, Sharon pounced on and bit him. Anyway, do you want me to call Kuro-chan here? Naruto asked in the middle of the petite girl's assault. Although he was not in pain, he couldn't help but rub every parts of his body which was bitten by Koneko in instinct. Koneko pondered about the offer, but after a while, she shook her head, confusing Naruto. I am not ready yet. All this time I thought she abandoned me, and I need some time to prepare. Koneko sniffled. Besides, I'm the one who should go to her since she had been looking after me all this time. Got it. Just tell me if you want to see your sister, okay? Naruto ruffled her hair much to the Nekoshu's ire. And if you want to learn senjutsu, you can learn it from either me or your sister. I hope you choose the latter though since I'm sure your sister wants to be the one who'd teach you in senjutsu. Naruto grinned at the smiling girl. And if you're afraid you'll go mad, you won't need to sense by my will. Senjutsu won't make Yukai go mad. You can believe in me in that. Koneko nodded with a small smile on her face before Naruto returned to his seat and Koneko jumped back to his lap. Her face was peaceful now as if something was lifted off of her shoulders. Rias too couldn't help but smile at Naruto. At the same time, however, she felt that she failed and was unfit to be their king. She glanced at Akeno and saw that her queen was conflicted about something although Akeno also had a smile plastered on her face. I swear, older siblings will always do anything for their younger siblings even in this era, huh? You mean like Itachi and Kuroka ne-sama? Naruto nodded at the white-haired girl before he turned to Rias. What's wrong, Rias? You've been oozing this negative emotion for quite a while. I could feel that it's disappointment? It's just. Rias paused, looking down on the hands on her thighs. I felt that I failed as their king. I mean, you just met them yesterday and now you gave them some of your advices to the problems they're facing all this time. The Gremory felt waters dripping from her eyes as she wiped them. While I've known them ever since I met them, I've never tried to help them with their problem. Naruto flicked her on the forehead, trying to knock some sense into the girl. Ouch, what's that for? Rias yelled at the blonde, then she noticed the disappointed looks her peerage gave her, including her queen who always stood behind her. You're not a failure, Rias. Even though you also have your own share of problems, you still took them in to give them real family and love. That alone made you the top 10 person that I respect as Rias the person herself, not Gremory or whatever title you carry. I'm sure your family here understand the weight of your problem since it will literally bind you to Riser for the rest of your life. Naruto smiled warmly at the redhead before the latter looked at her peerage, who gave her approving nods before she turned her head away quickly to hide her watery eyes. Thank you. Everyone, Naruto-kun. Rias said with her face red as almost the same as her hair's color. She felt really warm when Naruto acknowledged her as the girl called Rias, not Rias Gremory. A cough interrupted them all and they turned to Luminous before Naruto nodded at his maid. Since it's already late, should we all end the day? Naruto asked. You all can stay here for the night, we've got a lot of spare rooms here. The peerage except for Koneko, who had fallen asleep all of the sudden, looked at each other before they nodded at him. They had learned a lot today and a bed would be nice to end it. Kaneko's unconscious tightening of her hold on his shirt made it tough for Naruto to get her to release him. Without any viable choice, Naruto removed his shirt by asking Luminous, cutting it from behind, showing his muscular and lean body to his friends from the same school. Oh wow, this devil sure loves what she sees. Both Rias and Akeno had the same thought as they licked their lips before they blinked and turned to each other. Their eyes narrowed and an invisible spark between the two clashed. Not long after their little squabble, the two great ladies turned back to Naruto and they saw a scar right on top of his heart. Its size was as big as a fist. He explained that Sasuke did it to him the first time they had a fight when he left the village to gain power to kill Itachi. They wanted to know more, but Naruto told them that it was already late and he promised to tell them the story that they wanted to hear tomorrow. The devils nodded and Naruto had Luminous guided them to empty rooms which had spare sleeping clothes. Koneko was taken away by Rias since planned to sleep together with Akeno and the white-haired girl, while Kiba was sleeping alone to think about his goal and what Naruto said. That night when Naruto went to bed, Luminous went back inside his seal before Lilith joined him in the bed. They didn't do anything since the devil knew Luminous would be the first to have it. It still didn't stop her from sleeping naked with Naruto though. With that, the day finally ended for the residents of the home as sleep embraced them all. The Fenix family was gathered in their living room. Revel was sitting on a couch with her brother Ruvel, and their parents were sitting side by side. Since they knew what happened through the broadcasted video, they didn't need to be debriefed anymore. Then, father, as now we served Lady Lilith and her lover, what should we do? Ruvel asked. While the Lucifuge had the privilege of serving the house of Lucifer, they directly served the Lucifer himself, not the lady of the house. Nothing. Lady Lilith hasn't told us anything, that means we're still doing what we do. Lord Fenix answered with a relieved sigh before his eyebrow twitched at his wife, who had been silent with her cheeks tinted in pink color. Mother, are you alright? You look a bit red. Revel asked in worry since she had never seen her mother like this. Ruvel had his suspicion but decided to keep it to himself when he saw his father's eyebrow twitching rapidly at his mother. Oh, it's nothing, dear. I'm just so glad that Lord Naruto spared your brother. He even healed his mind, defying Lady Lilith's demand to put Riser to his death. He sounds like an okay person, Revel said with a light pink hue on her cheeks. I didn't think there was someone brave enough to defy Lady Lilith's wish. Quote, Lady Fenix giggled at her daughter's comment. You should meet him in person then, Revel. As the house serving Lady Lilith, we should have someone in the lady's house, am I correct? Revel was appalled with what her mother said. But mother, are you sure that I will be enough to act as a proxy between our family and Lady Lilith and Lord Naruto? Oh, my dear Revel. I'm sure that you're the best person for this. Besides, I'll have you join Kuo Academy to learn more about the society. We can't have the daughter of the Fenix keep locked in a cage, right? I think it is the time to let your wings fly. Then Lady Fenix giggled into her hand as if she remembered something. And make sure to not call Lord Naruto with formalities since he hates that. Revel tilted her head to the side. But you are calling him with the title, Mother. Lady Fenix held her cheeks with her hands. Oh my, her cheeks flared up red. You'll understand when you get older, Revel. On the sideline, Ruvel and his father deadpanned at their sister, daughter and wife, Mother. Mother is enraptured with Lord Naruto, isn't she? While it pains me to say this, she is. Lord Fenix sighed. Even I can't deny someone ballsy enough to defy Lady Lilith. He shuddered, remembering her sadistic nature. Nope, there was no way he wanted to remember that face anymore. The man got bowling balls as his balls then. Father and son nodded. While it was weird to see their wife, mother to be enraptured with another man, they could respect it. After all, devils were infatuated with powers. The two sighed. Lucky bastard. They cursed at the blonde. So Tan, Suna or Sona Sitri received a call from her sister who was one of the Satans. Oni-sama, what is it? Is there something important happening that you called in the middle of the night? Yes, did you not watch the broadcast just now? They were all over the underworld. Sona sighed. It would seem that her sister somehow forgot that she was in the human world, not in the underworld. Ne-sama, I'm in Kuo, remember? How am I supposed to watch whatever it is that was broadcasted in underworld if they're not on the devil tube? Oh, right. Ehehe, sorry Sotan. Anyway, it's huge news in the underworld right now. Rias-chan also got out of her engagement because of that, and the main house of Fenix clan now has the highest standing than the four Satans. Since none of us were able to record it and posted it online, I'll just send you what happened in the broadcast just now. Good night, Sotan. I'll make sure to visit you soon. And send my regards to that handsome hunk. Sona blinked in confusion as she fixed her glasses. Rias got out of her engagement? How? What happened in the underworld? Who's this hunk that her sister mentioned? A certain blonde with whiskers on his face came to her mind, making the heiress to shake the thought off. A few seconds later, several documents came out of the magic circle and the sister of the Leviathan picked them up before reading the first few sentences. Her eyes widened considerably before she skimmed faster until she found two particular names. Rias Gremory and Riser Fenix, and then another pair of names that shook her, Lilith Lucifer and Naruto Uzumaki. The paper fell from her hands. She took out a deep breath. What in the Satan's name happened? It was early morning. Naruto woke up with a bit of difficulty since Lilith loves to snuggle with him when she is asleep. What's worse, she loved to sleep naked and he needed to have a cold shower immediately. He went down the hall and entered the bathroom. With a snap of his fingers, his clothing was gone and he slid open the door only to find a raven-haired girl was already inside and showering. The girl turned around and his eyes met Naruto's. They blinked at each other before slowly, the girl's eyes moved down his chiseled body toward the kunai between his thighs. Akeno stared at his fully erect kunai with a nosebleed and red cheeks as he admired the piece of meat. Era, she muttered as she licked her lips. Naruto covered his crotch as fast as a lightning. Sorry, he yelled before running out of the bathroom. He had forgotten that he let them stay here for the night. With a snap, he was immediately cleaned and fully clothed in his school uniform. He hated this method since it didn't calm his boner and he felt uncomfortable for not touching the water. Not only that, Akeno had seen his brother down there. He groaned as he moved to the kitchen downstairs and began making fast for the Devils group and his. Half an hour later, the Devils were awake and had gathered on the table with traditional Japanese fast. Morning, Naruto-kun, senpai, Naru. Greeted Rias and her peerage. Morning. Fast is ready and we can head to school as soon as you finished them. They wasted no time and sat at the table. The blonde however noticed that Akeno was giving him a glance from the corner of her eyes. He ignored her, trying to not think about what happened just now. Akeno, are you alright? You're a bit red there. Rias asked with concern in her voice. Koneko however smelled something she didn't expect from Akeno, especially this early in the morning. She decided to keep quiet before she noticed Naruto's face was also turning red little by little. Koneko really wanted to ask what happened, but she could guess something must have happened between the two this morning. Perhaps she would ask when it was only the two of them since she didn't want to trouble her favorite blonde this early. Not long after that, they were done with the fast and Naruto had left some food for Lilith and the new girl who was sleeping with Luminous since Naruto noticed the Biju had left some time in the middle of the night. The two ladies had always been the difficult ones to wake up, therefore he didn't bother to call them. Rias, her peerage and Naruto were walking toward the school as they gathered the attention from the girls and the boys from the same school. Mostly were whispers as to why Naruto was with them from the girls and some curses from the boys. At the gate, Rias could see that Sona was standing with Tsubaki as if they were waiting for them. Naruto decided to play the fool and moved past the president and her vice president. Well, Rias, Himejima-san, Kiba-kun, Koneko-chan, thank you for accompanying me to the school. I'll see you later. They nodded since they knew the blonde didn't want his identity to be revealed yet. Unfortunately, things didn't go as he wanted to since Sona grabbed his hand in hers. Is there something the matter, Shitori Kaichu? Naruto-san, you sure played us yesterday. The black-haired girl smiled a bit too sweet for his liking. I'm impressed with you. I couldn't get a read on your play pretend and you managed to slip under us all this time. Please come to the student council room, Rias and everyone too. Did I do anything wrong for you to force me like this? No, I just want to have a talk with you. Can I pass? I'm tired and I don't want to deal with this again for a while. It's only for a while, Naruto-san. I promise I won't take too much of your time. Naruto froze suddenly, startling the devils who noticed the changes in his eyes but not to the normal humans. The blonde looked up to the roof and the rest of them followed his eyes. There was a black-haired girl with pointy ears wearing a black shirt and skirt under a pink cardigan looking down at the group, or more exactly, at the blonde. A girl? Rias and Sona's eyes narrowed at her. What is she doing up there? Tisk, she found me quite fast this time. The blonde muttered under his breath. Do you know her, Naruto-kun, san? Rias and Sona asked at the same time before the two of them turned to glare at each other. Yes, all of you might know her as the Ouroboros dragon. Since she didn't have a name back when she came to exist long ago, I named her Ophis. The two heiresses' eyes threatened to jump out of their sockets at the danger on the roof of their school. Not only that, Naruto was the one who named her. Didn't he know that her name brought terror to the world of supernatural? Don't worry, she only comes to see me since I promised her something if she can find me again. But damn, I thought it would take more than several hundred years again this time. With that said, Naruto left before waving at the two peerages. Well, see you later guys. The devils watched as the blonde ran up the wall, climbing as if defying gravity itself. They looked around in surprise since there were still some other students, but nobody seemed to notice what was happening since they didn't even bother to look at where they were looking. Was it illusion? Or did somehow he erased our presences? Was the thought of Rias and her peerage. Should we follow him, Sona? Or should we tell the Satans? Rias asked her rival. She really didn't want to call for her overprotective brother, and while she knew Naruto's incredibly strong, surpassing her brother, she didn't know how he fared against the Ouroboros dragon. No, since Naruto-san said that she only comes here for him, I'm sure there won't be anything. Sona was cut off as a loud boom happened on the rooftop. Rias slyly turned at Sona, who sheepishly looked away. You were saying? Shut it, was the distinctive answer she got from Sona. Bucko? Should we go up there? Akeno asked. Although she knew this guest was someone beyond their levels, at least maybe they could help minimizing the damage. No need, a voice came from behind them. What surprised them was not only Naruto coming up from behind suddenly, but it was the thing that he brought with him. The Ouroboros dragon in her human form was sitting on Naruto's shoulders as she sniffed the blonde's hair and let out a content sigh. Koneko hissed at the black-haired girl who saw the Nekoshu's golden eyes before the dragon gave her a tiny smug look as if winning against her. Rias, Sona, Tsubaki, Akeno and Kiba were in full alert, although they knew they were no match for Ophis. I need a day off from school, Sona. It seems Rimu is acting up again in my dimension. It is no longer your dimension, Naruto. You left it, I came to exist in there and it is mine now until Rimu came when I left for a walk. I always told you to share with her. She is too noisy. I want my peace. Rimu? Sona tilted her head to the side, but somehow she had this gut feeling that she knew who this Rimu the two were talking about. Long story short, I named that overgrown red lizard years ago. You probably know her as the Great Red. The devils went white when they heard the title. No one was oblivious enough to not recognize the title of one of the strongest beings. Maybe I should bring her here. Naruto muttered, making the devils turn pale. Is this person out of his mind? He wanted to bring one of the three strongest beings outside into the human world? Sona thought to herself alongside Tsubaki. Yes, take her out from there. Ophis agreed. Then you'll go back and won't disturb me anymore? No. Oh Satans. Rias and Sona glanced at each other. We'll have two of the strongest beings living in our town, won't we? They let out a breath they didn't know they were holding. What do you mean no? Didn't you say you want your peace? None of your problems. Ophis buried her face in Naruto's sun-kissed blonde hair. Where's the Biju? I didn't see her with you today. The devils tilted their head to the side again. That was another term that they had never heard before. Still sleeping with the new girl in my family. Lilith probably joined them by now. Lilith? Please just don't freak her out. I haven't told her about you or Rimu yet. Ophis nodded. Then Naruto turned to Sona and Rias. Well, I guess I'll see you tomorrow then, see ya. The blonde waved tiredly. It was still morning and he could feel troubles after troubles would throw themselves at him. Naruto opened a portal leading to the dimension where Rimu stayed and walked in. Before it closed, Sona and Rias looked at each other and ran into it, surprising the members of their peerage. Kaichu, Bucko, Tsubaki, take care of today's work. Akeno, make an excuse for me today. Soon the portal closed and there was nothing in front of them. None of the students were paying attention to what happened and that confused the devils greatly, but since Kiba, Akeno and Koneko knew what Naruto was, it must be a Naruto thing. Tsubaki sighed before she bid farewell to her fellow devils and returned to the student council room while Akeno and the others headed for their respective class. What the hell were you two thinking? Naruto yelled angrily at the two heiresses who were kneeling in front of him on a platform that he made. They were shrouded with luminous chakra and it wasn't shaped like a fox since Naruto had learned to control luminous chakra better. It only cloaked them like a thin aura but extremely dense and protected them from everything. Don't you know that only beings like us can survive in the dimensional gap? He asked again at the two devils. They jumped to follow him but as soon as they did so, they almost died since they were exposed to the nothingness within the gap. Please tell me you two are idiots, please? At least that'll make me feel a bit better. The blonde sighed. Idiots. Ophis mocked, earning glares from the two heiresses. But I thought that it would be the same since yesterday you took us into a different dimension. Rias reasoned as she sniffled. She didn't expect to be lectured like this alongside her rival. Naruto groaned before he rubbed his forehead. These two would have died if he hadn't noticed someone took a step into the portal beside him and Ophis. Yep, you two are idiots. Naruto said, causing Sona to frown. Then the blonde turned to the aforementioned girl. Especially you, Sona. He pointed a finger at the bob-haired girl. I'm sure that you know about the dimensional gap since I can see that you are the smarter one between you and Rias. The redhead pouted and gave an indignant, hey, at Naruto from being told that Sona was her better. The aforementioned girl made a small victory pose in her mind from being told smarter than the Gremory. I don't have anything to say for myself. She really didn't. She learned from her sister that the video being broadcasted yesterday showed them a dimension different than theirs and she thought that the dimensional gap was actually visitable. Since she also noticed that Rias was very excited to follow the blonde, she didn't question her and followed her rival. It was a fatal mistake. Not only they almost died because of their foolishness, they were also being scolded by the boy she wanted to get acquainted with, and he called them idiots. What a way to start a day. She huffed slightly. Anyway, Naruto disrupted their thoughts. This dimensional gap was a test run when I first learned that I could create a separate dimension from our Earth. That time I didn't understand what was needed for humans to live and just created this place without thinking. You can say that this is a trash bin to me but a home for Ophis and Rimu. Don't call my place a trash bin, Naru. Ophis chided with no clear expression on her face, though there was a small frown expressed in her eyes. Right, sorry, forget about that. Naruto then turned to the two before he reached out for their hands. Hold on tight and don't let go. We'll go and meet Rimu now. The two girls blushed at how tight he held their hands as if afraid that they would disappear if he let them go. To their surprise, Naruto's hands were rough yet warm and gave them the most safest feeling they ever felt. Where is she? Naruto closed his eyes to sense the life force of the dragon, found her. With that said, the three disappeared in a white flash. Arriving at where Rimu was, Naruto immediately created a platform for the girls to stand on and two trash cans. Unfortunately, since this was the first time for the girls to use this kind of teleportation technique, they threw up. Yeah, that's what happened to first-timers. Gross. Ophis said, looking at the two heiresses who threw up inside the cans Naruto created. Feeling a bit grateful since there wouldn't be any puke floating around her home. Please warn us the next time you're going to do that, Naruto-san. Naruto ignored the two girls who fumed at him. Then the two girls noticed that Naruto was looking at something behind them. You've come back, Naru. Yo, Rimu. It's been a long time. In front of the trio was a really huge dragon. Mountains? They're tiny compared to this. The heiresses held each other's hand and slowly moved back behind Naruto. Are we finally going to play Naru? I've been asking Office to play with me, but she never wants to. Sorry, but you and I know if we play in this era, everything will be gone in an instant and I'd rather not do that. Naruto chuckled at the whining dragon while Rias and Sona paled at the thoughts. I've never won against you. And I really want to get at least one win. And that's why I am here. Naruto said as he smacked his left chest. I challenge you to a food fight. The one who eats the most wins. Food? Do you even have anything my size? Naruto fell on his face comically as Rias and Sona's sweat dropped at him. Just turn into your human form already. My neck is gonna get sore from looking up at you, you know. Boo, you're no fun. A red light then enveloped Great Red's body before then her dragon form turned smaller and smaller until she reached Naruto's chin and began to shape like a human, not counting the 2 red horns on top of her head. She was naked as a newborn baby. Well, not really, since her s were covered by scales that extend to her entire arms, and her crotch was also covered by them through her whole legs. Then she stretched, showing Naruto the bounciness of her breasts and the underboobs along with her porcelain white abdomen. Don't stare, Naruto-kun, san. The blonde then slapped his cheeks before a flick of his wrists made an article of clothing began to wrap the dragon girl's body in front of them. This binding on my chest is suffocating me, Naru. Quote, it's called bra, and you lacked modesty. Naruto then pointed to Office on top of his head. Look at Office here. She is wearing proper clothing. True enough, Office was wearing a pink dress and black cardigan on top of it. Unlike the first time he met her, she wore a black gothic dress with a non-existent chest part, revealing her flat chest covered only X tapes on them. Hers looks more comfortable. Rimu pouted before her body glowed red again and turned smaller. Then she shadowboxed a bit, trying her smaller form. Yep, this is much comfortable and I feel faster. The Great Red in her human form turned to Naruto. Just give me an oversized shirt or cloak for easy maneuver, Naru. Yes, yes. The blonde did what she asked for as he gave her a cloak that covered her from neck to right above the knees. Yup, this is fine. The dragon beamed a smile at them. Let's go eat then. It's been a while since you treated me to eat. It's more like I fed you 100 Mount Everest sizes of food before. Naruto deadpanned. My poor Gamma-chan was flattened and drained out of its life, you know? Details, details. Rimu rolled her eyes before she stared at Office, who was still on top of Naruto. What? The Ouroboros dragon asked with disinterest. You get your home back, now get down. That place is mine now. My shoulders and head are mine, you too. Naruto retorted just to be ignored by the 2 dragons. No, I'm coming. Office replied flatly. Huh? But Rimu isn't staying here anymore. Great Red inquired as she tilted her head to the side. So, didn't you say that you want your silence back? Naruto cocked an eyebrow at the infinite dragon on his shoulders as he and the 2 heiresses listened to them. I do, but I also don't mind staying with Naru and Lumi. Then why did you keep telling me to get out of here? Rimu pouted at her fellow dragon. Office gave her a flat look. Because you're noisy. Naruto's sweat dropped at the 2 dragons who glared at each other. Rias and Sona didn't dare to utter a single syllable since they were afraid of the strongest beings after Naruto and Lumi gave them their attention. To be honest though, it was kind of funny that the dragons bickered like children and Naruto acted like a father handling them. The 2 then imagined their life in the future if they got married with the blonde hunk. A black-haired boy running around the house, disturbing his parents from doing their job as the father tried to calm the boy by bribing them with food. That would be very interesting. Sona muttered a bit too loud for the dragons to hear. Rimu turned to the devils who went pale as they received Great Red's attention. By the way, are these 2 my appetizers? Rimu began to drool at the sight of the heiresses. Rias and Sona shifted uncomfortably from the stare and moved behind Naruto in horror. No, they're not. They're 2 idiots who tagged along without telling me. I had to give them a little bit of my power so they would not get erased. Idiots. Office snickered much to the heiress's annoyance. Rimu stared at the devils, unimpressed at Sona as she gave her a pitying look. Sona grew a tick mark at Rimu's face, but she was still clever enough to not attack the Great Red. Rimu turned to Rias and her eyes widened as dinner plates when she saw her, or to be specific, her boobs. She got 2 large buns here. Rimu groped Rias' boobs without warning as she tried to pull her boobs, earning a moan from the devil. Sona felt irritated somehow since the look Rimu gave her just now was the same when people compared her body to Rias. That's part of her body. Naruto bonked the dragon girl's head with a flushed face. Let her go now. Mu tilde. Rimu pouted with teary eyes at Naruto. She didn't know why, but every time he did it, it hurt as if her defensive powers were not working. She stared at Rias' boobs again with a sad look. Are you really sure that those aren't meat buns? No, they're not. Naruto yelled at the dragon before he summoned 2 meat buns for Rimu and ice cream for Office on top of his head. Is she always like this, Naruto-kun? Rias asked. Clearly it isn't, Rias. Sona answered for the blonde. From the look on her face, the sea tree heiress was miffed. She has never seen boobs bigger than hers. That's the only reason she fondled yours and mistook them as food. Why do you sound so irritated, Sona? Rias inquired. It wasn't rare to see her childhood friend like this, but this time there were no other people except the 5 of them. Nothing. Sona then turned to Rimu, looking at her up and down. Do you think it is possible if I used all my pawns to ask her to join my peerage? Her magical energy seems to be lower than mine right now. Rias gawked at her rival, but before she could say anything, Naruto beat her to it by a mile. He laughed, startling Sona, who then glared at him. Is there anything funny, Naruto-san? She asked, her eyebrow twitching rapidly at him. Did coming into the dimensional gap turned your brain to mush or something? The blonde asked between his laughter. Rias too couldn't help but giggled at Naruto's remark toward her rival. Or your intelligence dropped to Rias level here? Hey, even I'm not that stupid. Naruto raised an inquisitive brow at the red-haired goddess. You sure about that? Rias averted her gaze with a red face before Naruto turned to address the sea tree heir. You do know even if she is now looks like a human and her power dropped considerably, she is still great red, right? Devil's pieces aren't strong enough to turn a godlike being to one of your peerage members. Naruto shook his head with a chuckle. Sona frowned. Besides, sorry to say this, even if the Satans had combined all their 8 mutated pawns pieces, they wouldn't be able to turn her. Naruto grinned at the now confused Rias and Sona. Didn't you understand? Sears X is a lot weaker than Trihexa, Great Red and full-powered Ophis, who are the strongest trio barring myself and Lumi. If I recall correctly, didn't devil pieces need the king to be stronger than the ones they wanted to turn? There might be some exceptions if the latter is only a bit stronger than the former though. But Rimu here, technically is still stronger than them even if she suppressed her magical energy. Sona cupped her chin. She had forgotten that one part. Did her brain really turn to mush after coming in here? I guess I'm becoming as stupid as Rias right now. Hey, Rias pouted in indignation. Then a loud grumble came from the direction of Great Red. Naru, I'm hungry. He blinked a few times before he opened a portal back to Earth. Naruto had returned back to Kuo and dropped Rias and Sona back to school. It seemed the passage of time between the gap and Earth was a bit different since it had been 2 hours since they were gone. Naruto had taken the day off since he had to take care of Ophis and Rimu, which was not a problem for Sona since she understood that the blonde had to entertain his guests. Rias promised to come to his store after school today before they went their own ways. Lumi. The 2 dragons greeted the female Biju politely as soon as they saw her laying down on the couch on the 2nd floor of the store. They had seen what she could do and nope, they were not going to try their luck anymore. The Biju didn't know what holding back meant when they had a small fight. If not for Naruto, they would have been erased from existence. Naruto was the better one if Rimu wanted to have fun, since the blonde tried his best not to kill, although that irritated the overgrown red lizard a bit. Ophis, Rimu. I haven't seen the 2 of you for quite a while. The 3 greeted each other before taking a seat on an empty couch. Naru was a bit hard to find this time. Naru hadn't visited since the last time he treated me with food. Speaking of which, I want food, Naru. The blonde chuckled at Great Red before he clapped his hands and a feast appeared on top of the table. Don't make a mess please. I'm too lazy to play maid today. Luminous said as she sprawled on the couch. While Ophis was eating the snacks and Rimu devoured the meat dishes, a certain red-haired devil and a white-haired girl were watching them, one in fear and the other one in confusion. Hey, Naru? Lilith called for her lover. Yes? That is Ophis, the Ouroboros dragon, right? I'm surprised that you know her in this form, Lilith. Naruto chuckled mirthfully. But yes, that's her. Who is the other one then? She has red horns and red dragon tail. Lilith asked nervously before she sipped her tea to calm herself. Oh, that's Great Red, or Rimu as I named her. She spat her tea out before gawking at Naruto. She had hoped that Naruto was kidding, but when she saw him looking so serious, she knew that he was telling the truth. What are they doing here? They're not going to destroy Kuo, right? Naruto waved his hand at her concern. Nah, Rimu is hungry and Office just wants to hang around. The ex-wife of Lucifer deadpanned at the blonde before she sighed lightly. I swear, ever since I knew you, everything you did always blows my mind. I think I'm gonna go crazy if this keeps up. Is that a compliment? Naruto raised an eyebrow at the devil. Kinda. Lilith then rested her head on Naruto's shoulder, content with what they had. She had always wanted a normal life, and both Naruto and Lumi gave it to her. She didn't need to act like a lady and handle the devils. No more giving birth to devils like Lucifer demanded. She just lazed around, eat, sleep, have fun playing games and maybe a little make out with the blonde, human. Naruto then turned to the silver-haired girl that had been looking at them for quite a while. Good morning, Rei. The bob-haired woman tilted her head to the side. That's your name, I can't have you go around without a name, right? Rei? You sure do pick quite a name, huh, Naru? Luminous said from the other couch. Well, since she is indeed new and has zero experience, Rei seems an appropriate name for her. The Biju nodded before browsing the net with her phone. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, nice to meet you, Rei. If there is anything that you don't understand or you're interested in something, don't hesitate to tell me, okay? Yes, Naruto-sama. The blonde waved his hand. No, only Naruto. Naruto. Repeat after me. Yes, Naruto. Naruto nodded. This was going to be hard, but he'll make sure that he taught her properly to live her life the way she wanted. It was later in the afternoon, and the store had opened a little earlier because Naruto didn't have school today. He was being extra cautious, however, because the policeman who had forced him to attend to school may show up for lunch. His fallen buddies arrived as usual, but this time they were accompanied by a short blonde girl dressed as a nun. He saw the four of his friends were a little too serious for his comfort, which meant that this was either related to the nun they brought with them or that they wanted to tell something to him. We need to talk. Donasek addressed the blonde earnestly. The Fallens chose to show themselves to Naruto in order to avoid giving the blonde the impression that they intended to harm him because he had likely heard about them from the devils. Naruto nodded before having one of his transformed clones to take over the stove for a while, and the six of them went up to the second floor where the guests saw Lilith playing PS5 on a 80 inches UHD TV while Office was reading a book with an earmuff to block any noises the TV made in the corner of the room where there were small racks of books, and Rimu devouring the mountain of foods which kept summoning themselves when they're almost out while watching Lilith play Devil May Cry 5. The guests turned to Naruto as if asking for an explanation. They found a sheepish look on the blonde's face as Naruto rubbed the back of his head. I also have something to tell the four of you, he remarked nervously from the look the Fallens threw at him. Then a small table and seats for six came out of nothing, surprising the Fallens and the nun. Please, sit down. His guests did so, and drinks and beverages abruptly came in front of them. I'll start since I felt guilty for not telling you guys first and the devils found out about me. Naruto started with a small sigh. That got the Fallen's attention immediately, including the nun who looked confused. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, a human that existed before God came to exist and had lived for a very long time. The blonde started carefully, not wanting to tell them that God could come back to life. I killed gods who tried to take over Earth back in my time, which had gone for a very long time. Smokin' Sick style, came a voice from the game. Damn it, Lilith, turn down the volume a bit. You're making me look like I'm telling a joke. The devil did so. Naruto returned his attention to the Fallens, who were stunned by his confession. I knew about devils, angels, and Fallens for a very long time. I'm not with any of them, and you could say that I'm a neutral faction in this matter. A hand raised, not from the Fallens, but from the blonde nun. You Uzumaki-sama, just call me Naruto, please. I don't really care about this formalities. Naruto smiled at the nun. The girl squeaked but nodded at him. Then, Naruto-san. The blonde nodded. It was a bit better than before. When you said that you killed gods, did you really mean there are gods from outside of our planet? Naruto cupped his chin and thought of his answer carefully. Yes, but I can't really call them gods actually. Then why? To put it simply, these people that called themselves gods were actually much more powerful than God that biblical faction prays to. The eldest of them, who luckily had passed away before they tried to invade our planet, was said to be the strongest out of all of them. They grew more powerful after they conquered the planets they were in. And if we're speaking about omnipotence, these people easily outclassed God himself. Naruto explained to his guests slowly for them to absorb the information. In fact, my super great-great-great-grandmother was one of those people, and she was the primordial goddess of our earth who tried to turn humanity into her mindless soldiers before my friends and me sealed her in the moon in another dimension. The nun nodded slowly, still trying to process what Naruto said. Another hand raised, this time it was Middle's. Yes, MIT-chan? Naruto turned to the nervous girl? Woman? Since she was actually older than what she looked like. The Fallens were afraid of him before when he revealed that he existed before God, but now they were glad that he was still the same outgoing person that they knew. Why didn't you say anything if you knew we're not humans, Naruto-kun? Naruto just chuckled at the girl, making her to blush at his smile. Simple, I want to be your friend without caring for our status as humans or Fallens. That's it? Yup. Nothing else in your agenda? Nope. That's why I managed to befriend Ophis and Great Red over there. The blonde pointed at Ophis and Rimu. The Fallens went pale and frigid. Ophis likes her quietness and Rimu likes to eat. I try to learn about my friends, you know. I know that the Fallens look down on humans, but the five of us forgot about that disparity and managed to communicate with each other. When I met Donut here, I knew he was a battle maniac. Who would have thought that he became a ramen addict? The blonde chuckled, while Donaseek gained a tick mark on his forehead and his friends giggled a bit at their companion. Ray-chan, Kala-chan and MIT-chan also have their own sadistic and cruel tendencies in their eyes, but as we spent our time together, I saw the three of you becoming much better than how you used to be. The three women blushed at the man. True to what he said, they changed a lot after knowing Naruto. They didn't realize, but their lust for blood had decreased by a lot to almost non-existent. The nun who was listening to Naruto was astounded by him. This man might not be God's followers, yet he accomplished more than her fellow followers could. This was the kind of person she wanted to be, someone who would make friends with a fallen and show them a better way of life. She wished to be able to help people despite their differences. By the way, I'm not sure if the four of you realized it, but I sensed that your holy energy had returned to those of angels ever since you arrived here today. The four Fallens' eyes widened in surprise as they hurriedly summoned their wings. They were taken aback since the once blackened wings had reverted to their original state. The women brought their wings to wrap around their bodies as they cried in tears while a halo appeared over their heads, floating in their place while Donaseek just smiled. The Fallens now had 3 pairs of wings, courtesy of overcoming their sins, thus increasing their powers including the potency of their holy magics. But, how? I thought that after we fell, there would be no chance for us to return to being angels. Rainier inquired, her eyes welling up with tears. Naruto began to laugh nervously, making the ex-Fallens confused. Well, I don't know who told you that, but I saw God, or more like I peeped on God when he made that system. And I kinda pranked him a bit. The nun turned her head so fast to the blonde with a horrified look plastered on her face when she heard Naruto had pranked God. WWW, what did you say, Naruto-san? The nun stuttered out her question, hoping that she misheard it. I kinda pranked him a bit. The nun almost fell over from her seat when she didn't mishear it. Well, at first, the system he created was not reversible, and if angels fall, they will stay as Fallens for the rest of their lives. And when God left the 7th heaven where his systems are kept for a walk, I tweaked it a bit since I thought it was too cruel for the Fallens not able to return to being angels. Naruto answered nervously as the sister's glare turned soft from his explanation. After God found out about the change I made, he wailed for 7 days and 7 nights since I ruined his system and he couldn't fix it. Remaking it from scratch was also impossible since he had exhausted all his powers. Naruto laughed awkwardly. He never found out that I was the one who did it too, so I guess my prank was a big success. Hell, I don't think he knew that I existed. The angels' sweat dropped at Naruto. They knew that he was someone who loves to prank people, but they didn't think that he was ballsy enough to pull one on God. It is very rude to peep and pull a prank on God, you know, Naruto-san? The sister chided with a small smile. While she didn't agree with Naruto's behavior, but he did it for the Fallens and saved their lives and she could respect that. Hey, I'm just trying to be cautious of what he will do to my family, okay? This planet is like a family to me since I'm very connected to her through senjutsu all this time. Naruto coughed into his hand before going on a tangent. But Naruto-kun, how do the changes to the system that you made allowed us to return to being angels? Rainier couldn't help but ask. This might help their fellow Fallens to return to heaven. Well, the thing about this tweak that I made, angels who turn to a fallen one is only a punishment for them, and they had to overcome whatever that made them fall in the first place to become angels again. Not only that, but their purity and virginity or whatever they were are restored like everything they did never happened. And another thing is you grew in your power, like the number of your wings right now. You can tell your friends in the Fallen's faction, but they must know that they have to truly realize their mistake or their wings won't return. The women were once again taken aback by what he had done for them. When they realized they had returned to being angels, they shared a same thought. Even though our wings had been restored to their former state, our purity had not. Fortunately, Naruto convinced the angels that their purity had been restored. But what if we fall again? Calawarner inquired, her voice trembling. She didn't want to fall anymore. She could go home now, after being away for so long. You won't. I believe in the four of you. You girls might have fallen because either from lust or wrath, but I guess it's the former since it's the most common ones, and Danasik is definitely from the two of them. I noticed the way the three of you look at me, and it's not lust but pure affection. Pure love won't make you fall. Gabriel Chan confirmed that for me years ago, but still, you can't have since that will make you fall. As for Donut, his lust for battle and wrath are gone, replaced by gluttony, but it wasn't too terrible to make him fall anymore. When Naruto pointed out their feelings for him, the women became bright red like boiled crabs, while the males simply laughed at him. He really wanted to rebut him for what he said, but this time he could let it go. As long as they're done moderately, I'm sure that you won't fa. Naruto barely managed to finish what he wanted to say before the now ex-fallen women jumped at him. They showered him with hugs and kisses, not holding themselves back anymore since it was true that what they felt for the blonde was purely love, not lust. Danasik shook his head in amusement. He just couldn't believe that he had one more chance to live as an angel. The nun shed a tear with a smile on her face as she watched the angels cried in happiness. Okay girls, that's enough. I get that you're grateful, but I'm sure you have other matters to talk about since you brought Sister San here, right? The angels blinked a few times at each other before they stood up and straightened their looks. Then Naruto made a ramen for Danasik since the angel requested it and he really wanted to savor the taste slowly this time. They would return back to heaven after this and they didn't know when they would be able to eat ramen again. The angels then proceeded to tell him that the nun's name was Asia Argento. She was the holy maiden before she was excommunicated by the church and labeled as a witch, ever since he healed a devil in the past. Since she had nowhere to go, she relied on the fallen angels, in this case, Rainier. Asia was glad when Rainier said that she would help her when she arrived at Kuo. The angel picked her up at the airport this morning and came here right after the store opened. I see. Naruto sighed. He was angry at the church, but he knew if he stormed the church he would only trouble Gabriel. That's why, I hope you can take her in, Naru-kun. Sure, was Naruto's immediate answer. Asia needed help and he would be glad to give her one. Besides, Naruto stood up and walked to Asia who looked at him nervously. The nun felt that his cerulean blue eyes pierced through deep into her very soul and she felt herself naked in front of those eyes. He was probing every little thing about herself. The older blonde then surprised the nun by pulling Asia into a bear hug. I've always wanted a sister. FWEH. Blonde hair? We're the same. Green eyes? No matter, I can just say that she inherited the eyes from my mother. The angel's sweat dropped at Naruto, but this eased their consciousness. They trusted Naruto now more than ever since he gave them their lives back as angels and because he was their best friend, perhaps more for the girls. Not that they didn't trust him before, it was just that their trusts were amplified many times more after this incident. Do you want to be my sister, Asia-chan? But I don't want to trouble you. Meh, I'm pretty sure you aren't going to trouble me. I mean, look at those two girls who are enjoying themselves. Naruto pointed at the two dragons, earning a bead of sweat dropping from each of his guests. I don't know how to speak Japanese. I'll teach you, or if you want the cheat mode, I can impart you with the knowledge, whichever you want. Asia, however, still wasn't convinced. I don't know how to socialize with people. I'm extremely shy. We will teach both you and Ray then. I just created her yesterday since Lumi and I wanted a new family member, and now we have another one joining in. Create? Asia tilted her head. Yep, she's. You can say that she's a newborn baby in the body of an adult. Asia's eyes widened as she looked at him. Creating a life was something only God could do. No, please don't look at me with those eyes, the four of you too. I'm not God. Yes, I can create life, I can create a moon, sun, worlds, dimensions and everything, but I'm not God. I hate that title the most since most of the gods that I met were arrogant bastards. Asia nodded, albeit reluctantly. She wanted to refute his statement, but she knew this person was speaking the truth. Then, back to my question, do you want to be my sister? I promise that I'll give you a family that you deserve. We won't ever kick you out for something that you think you did right. We will protect you from anything that want to hurt you, and most of all, we won't ever treat you bad, and we will love you as a real family. Asia looked down on her hands as she pressed her head to Naruto's chest. See, can I really be your sister? Yup. In fact, I really want you to be my little sister. Naruto said giddily. Why, you won't throw me away? No, I promise. I won't take back my promise because that is my way of life. Asia sniffled. Then, I want to be your sister, Naruto-ni-san. The nun was immediately showered with hugs from the older blonde. Asia turned bright red before she passed out from the unexpected blood rush to her head. I've got a question before we leave, Naru-kun. Rainier asked as she glanced at the red-haired girl who was playing the PS5. This is only my assumption, but isn't that Lilith Lucifer, the wife of the original Lucifer? Her companions went wide-eyes in surprise before they turned their heads to the girl so fast that Naruto afraid they might have a whiplash. And no, you're not wrong, that is Lilith, but also Eve, Adam's wife. Wah! Asia covered her mouth with her hands. She never expected to see the wife of Adam from the Bible in her lifetime, but she was there, playing video game without any care. But how could Eve become the wife of Lucifer? Did Eve betray Adam for Lucifer? As if he knew what they wanted to ask, Naruto opened his mouth again. Eve didn't betray Adam, Asia-chan. Naruto turned to the blonde nun who blushed from her thought being read. Adam died and Lucifer tricked her, then she took a new name as Lilith Lucifer. Why, you sure about that, Naru-kun? Calawarner asked skeptically. Why, you don't trust me? Naruto asked with a fake tear falling from his eyes, making the brunette panic. I was there peeping God when created Adam and Eve, you know. Naruto deadpanned at the sister and angels. Wait, I'm confused, Naruto-ni-san. You said that you were already here before God existed, right? Asia got a nod from the blonde. Then, how do you explain the 7 days of creation? The angels turned to Naruto once more. They were also curious about that part since that was the first and second chapter of the Genesis. Even Lilith and Ophis were interested in his answer. While they knew Naruto existed before God existed, they never asked about this part. Well, he laughed nervously before he averted his eyes. Before the first day of creation, since there was no life on Earth back then after the natural disasters the planet caused, I mean literally nothing, water, plants, living things, etc. I made the sun go supernova and destroyed the moon by mistake when I was sparring with Lumi-chan. God saw this when he came to Earth and said, "Let there be light." Everyone in the room paused whatever activities they were doing. Apocalyptic, came the voice from the game Lilith was playing. Then, the second day and the next days happened as you know from the Bible. Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Everyone deadpanned at him, making him more nervous. For my self-defense, there was nothing on Earth and Lumi-chan wanted to stretch her muscles, and so we did since we didn't need to worry about humans or anything. But we went a little bit overboard, and the sun, moon, stars, everything except for the Earth were destroyed by our spar. I didn't do it intentionally. Their jaws dropped open in shock. Savage, came another voice from the game. Why, you did that in a light spar with the silver-haired woman who tended the cashier? Rainier asked incredulously. Yup, you had a spar with Lumi and still alive, Naru? A monotone voice inquired him. They turned to the small girl with long black hair. Hey, like I told you after Rimu was born, while Lumi-chan might be stronger in pure strength, I can still keep up with her. And if I used all my arsenals, me and Lumi-chan are around the same level, you know. Naruto harumphed as he crossed his arms. You never knew this, but I won against her once when I was a human. Well, the same goes for her since she wasn't this strong but she was still powerful back then, probably almost at the same level as yours. Naruto said proudly as he remembered when he tried to control her chakra. Incredible. I want you to father my children. Ophis said, making the women sputtered including Naruto himself before the latter calmed himself. You gotta ask Lumi-chan for that. And you do realize that you and Rimu here are basically our daughters, right? Since you two were born in the dimension that we created? So, I don't mind doing incest. Ophis said, making the women drop their jaw and Donasek cackled like a madman unfitting for an angel. But then they stopped and a same thought crossed the angels' minds. Ophis and Great Red's parents are Naru-kun, Idiot Chef and the woman downstairs. This will either be a great news or bad news for the supernatural world. Just ask Lumi-chan first. Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose as he could feel the headache he would get from Ophis later on. Naruto then turned to the angels. So, are we going to see each other again? Naruto asked the 4X Fallens. I'm going to miss you a lot if this is gonna be the last time we can see each other. He finished with a frown. Donasek snorted. When we make a report to Michael-sama, he will surely task us with something to do, and as a team, we'll ask him to put us in charge of Kuo as we know you the best, except for Gabriel-sama since she was put in charge of the Vatican. Ah, so Donut is gonna miss me too More like I'll miss your ramen. The man grinned. Naruto did the same before they fist bumped. Then the women approached him. I guess, I'll see you three sometime later? Naruto addressed them sadly. Yes, I guess so. Rainier said before she stepped forward and landed a kiss on his cheek. Middle floated and planted a kiss on the other side while Calawarner, being the bold one she was even as an angel, planted a kiss on his lips. The blonde blinked a few times before her female companions gawked at Calawarner. Asia who was blushing had covered her eyes but there were still some spaces between her fingers for her to peek through. Then the angels regrouped before a white magic circle appeared on the floor where they were standing. See you later Idiot Chef, Naru-kun. The angels said with a wave of their hands. In a flash, they were gone, leaving Asia alone sitting at the table and Naruto who plopped down on his seat. Well, I miss them already. Naruto smiled slightly before he felt a hand ruffling his hair as if to comfort him. There, Ophis said all of a sudden, surprising the ninja. Thanks. He smiled at the dragon who nodded at him. After a few minutes being comforted by the dragon, Naruto led Asia to one of the empty rooms for her to use. True to what she told him, she was a bit shy, but Naruto was confident he could get her to be more open. Naruto found out that she didn't have a lot of things of her own. Therefore he decided to take her outside with Lilith to shop for her necessities. Naruto also had something to tell the nun since she was a believer of God. While this might hurt her, he had to tell Asia that God was dead. It would be better that he was the one who told her truth rather than anyone else since they might the poor girl.
That's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, share and do comments.